Right, right. That's Okay, gang. Sorry. Yeah, no, we're actually on time. Welcome to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we talk to people from both sides of the aisle about issues political, cultural, from the silly to the serious. And gang, have we got a show for you today? We're going to be talking about um, Trump and the Constitution. Has Trump put us into a constitutional crisis with his executive orders, his use of Doge and Elon Musk, and many other issues at hand? Some say he has, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what that would mean um, and what we could do about it if it's so. But I have some lovely guests today to talk about it. I think everyone here, except for me and Soy Pill, deal with the law in some way, or lawyers. So it should be an interesting discussion, and I'm glad to be here. Pisco, open us up. Give us your thoughts. Why is this a constitutional crisis? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's clearly a constitutional crisis. Donald Trump is a disgrace to his office, and he is implementing a Project 2025 agenda specifically to centralize power to create authoritarian government. When I use the term constitutional crisis, I'm talking about any kind of significant and existential threat to the structure of the Constitution. We're not just talking about violations of a particular amendment. We're not just talking about, whether free speech was violated in a given instance. We're talking about the authorities of the government itself, the foundation of the different branches of government, which is the foundation of our society and what binds us together. That's what we mean by constitutional crisis. Okay, so what we're talking about here is a more systemic structural problem that has been introduced maliciously by this government and the deniable private actors that it employs to try to essentially centralize power. So, what's the crisis? All right. Number one, they are attempting to usurp Article 1 of the Constitution and to steal legislative authority from Congress. This is evident both in their unconstitutional and unlawful spending freeze that has already been stopped by two courts, district courts, count them, who have acknowledged that this is, very clearly trying to usurp the exclusive authority of the Congress to spend the money. And Article 1 clearly sets out that it's Congress who gets to decide what to spend the money. You can make some flippant comparison to a temporary pause, limited in scope, limited in time, one other instance in the history of this country. It is not at all dealing with the broader systemic attack on Congress's ability to appropriate funds. And let's think about it. Imagine if it were the case that Congress's statutes were just advisory, were just opinions, and optional for the president to implement. Absolute bullshit and garbage. And these motherfuckers are going to defend it and say that's not a constitutional crisis. It's a constitutional crisis when we talk about adding Supreme Court members to the bench, but it's not a constitutional crisis to just ignore the appropriations of Congress. Number two, Doge. Doge just purporting to eliminate statutorily enacted agencies of Congress. Eliminate, for example, what they're planning to do, the Department of Education, eliminate USAID, statutorily passed. So now what we're talking about here and what they're going to defend is that it's not a constitutional crisis for the president or his minions or his deniable oligarch friends to just delete an agency or to do the effective deletion in the case of just stripping them of all their funding, stripping them of everything. That is disgusting that they would defend that. And then finally, what we're gearing up to next, which is the attack on the judicial system, the real attack on the Supreme Court, where J.D. Vance, the authors of Project 2025, have all told us that they want to bring to heel the judicial department of the United States of America. They're already starting by this little rescinding of the memo that you saw, the spending freeze. Well, we rescind the memo, but not the policy. The district court judge in D.C. called them out, said it was one of the most disingenuous things she's ever seen to try to escape judicial review in that context. And what they're gearing up for, what J.D. Vance said, what these people said is, let Marshall enforce his rule. He's made his ruling, now let him enforce it. Harkening back to this apocryphal statement from Andrew Jackson. That's obviously what they're gearing up for. It's so serious, in fact, that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, someone who I disagree with vehemently on, had to come out publicly and make a statement directly, not directly, but everyone knows, addressing J.D. Vance and these kinds of disgusting robber barons. He came out and said, It's very concerning that people are talking about ignoring the courts, and they're going to defend it. And they're going to tell you, hey, it's no big deal. We don't give a shit about it. It's not a crisis at all. They're completely washed. They're completely cooked. They have no idea what's going on in this country. Your freedoms and the structure of the country is being attacked.
Okay, thanks. That was passionate. We'll get into it. Just maybe I should have been more clear. Be a little concise on these opening statements, gang. I want to get into the back and forth when we go. Zetsway, ball's your court. Go ahead.
This way, I'm more of just not a content creator or anything, but I'm just more of an acquaintance of Wix and Lactoid, and I'm an attorney, so I agreed to chat on this. I don't believe there's a constitutional crisis, mostly because constitutional crisis refers, at least my position, to something that our current systems don't have the tools to deal with it. Things like the Civil War, where you go, we don't have procedures on secession from the country. So if we have tools to deal with it, then it wouldn't be a constitutional crisis. And in terms of so I just don't believe that the current situation, not saying it's good, or that you're just saying that our current system has checks and balances in place to rectify if you don't like what's happening.
Okay, thanks for being here. Next up, we have the Soy Pill, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. As Wick so kindly pointed out, I'm not a lawyer. I am Jewish, so I have genetic memory of being a lawyer, and maybe that will help me here. But I'm arguing on the side that this is a constitutional crisis, which is defined essentially when the function and powers of government, the checks and balances, are not functioning as intended in the Constitution. As Pisco so elegantly pointed out and laid out, I won't get too deep into the details, but Trump is consolidating power into the executive branch and completely subverting those checks and balances, whether that be federal freezing of funds that are approved already by Congress, whether that be instituting Schedule F, reclassifying federal workers so that he can fire people that would otherwise have oversight on him, or doing any of the other things where he's ignoring court orders to check his power. It is a constitutional crisis. When we talk about whether or not we have the tools to fix it, I think we can clearly see that the tools that should be the checks and balances are being ignored, are being eroded. And if the standard for whether or not it's a constitutional crisis is going to be whether or not we have a civil war, I think that is an insane standard. But hey, that's an argument to make, so let's see if we do it. That's about all I have.
Well, thank you for being here, and excited to get into it. Lactoid, last but not least, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
You're fine, yeah.
So there's a Twitter user, his name is Zero Fucks, F-U-X, and he put out, it was like who said it? Was it Hitler or was it Pisco? And a couple of the ones are actually pretty difficult to differentiate, because what Pisco does is he uses incredibly hyperbolic language, us versus them categorization, and a sort of, mindset of they are evil, we need to defeat them, no alliances, nothing we can do. We're in a total crisis. We're dunzos. Holy shit, this is awful. We have to go to war. This is exactly the same kind of rhetoric that he criticized Trump using, right? Where you say fight like hell, you say fight them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, very much like Trump, hey, I don't mean this violently, but still, it is incredibly divisive. It is incredibly aggressive language, and it's also alarmist, I guess, in this regard. We're not in a constitutional crisis right now. I think that's kind of a ridiculous statement. I actually agree with the definition that there is a significant quote. Constitutional crisis is a significant and existential threat to the Constitution, not just a violation or a violation that has yet to be examined by the Supreme Court, which is its job, but a threat to the very structure. I think it's hilarious that people who want to add justices to the Supreme Court now care all of a sudden about constitutional crises. Notice how they've sort of dropped that language now that Trump won. But everything that Pisco went through legally, there is answers for all of it, right? Doge is made up of special government employees, which is allowed. They are allowed to do the things they are doing. When we're talking about destroying agencies, it depends how you do it. I agree that you can't just unilaterally remove an agency, but there is abilities to have agencies work with other agencies for certain agencies to divert funding from one agency to another agency in order to get certain XYZ thing done. There's plenty of legal tools that you can use, that the president can use, without threatening the separation of powers, without going against what Congress has the power to do. And one of those is simply delay things, which XYZ here, funding freeze. It is a delay, especially when it comes to U.S. aid. So there's legal examples for everything that was just mentioned. A lot of it is just alarmist and really fomenting hate, I think, against otherwise good people. Oh, and one last thing. Of course, we should be cutting government waste. Of course, this is a good thing. I think Doge has done incredible steps. And in fact, I think a lot of the motivation for the anger here is because of how effective they've been on identifying government waste and other horrible things that the government's been getting away with for a very long time.
Okay, well, we have some strong stances. Let's get into it. The floor is open. If you have trouble getting in, a word edgewise, just raise your hand or DM me or get my attention. I'll try to.
Yeah, the debate is not whether or not Pisco is a hypocrite. The debate is not whether or not Pisco is inflammatory. The debate is not whether Pisco supports this or that. The debate is about whether there's a constitutional crisis. And first of all, I think we should dispense with Zetsu's standard. And I think Lactoid, you disagree with Zetsu's standard, which is there needs to be a fucking civil type war situation for it to be a constitutional crisis.
I don't think that was his standard.
Stupid, right?
I don't think that was his standard.
Stupid.
No,
That wasn't my
What was your
standard.
standard,
real quick. That was not his standard. And the reason why I identified how hyperbolic you are is because I knew that you would try to pull this shit because you've been nothing but hyperbolic the past couple weeks. This shit. You're saying, he's saying, here's an example of a constitutional crisis. He's not saying there's the only. Hold on. He's not saying. So you came at us first. Firstly. Secondly, he's not saying this is the only example of a constitutional crisis, which is a civil war. He's saying that is a example. Something that we don't.
I was assuming something that using an extreme example that we could all understand.
Let's be clear, right?
Not a standard as a threshold.
If the president and if Elon Musk, and let's ask this both of Zetsu and of Lactoid, if they just purported to delete an agency enacted by Congress, would you say that it's a constitutional crisis? If they started doing at least two?
If they straight up try and delete it without anything, if they do something else that somehow hinders it, then no. But if they actually just say it doesn't exist anymore, you're all fired, that I've gotten rid of the department, then yes, I guess I would say that, because if Congress...
And he hasn't done that. And he hasn't done that.
Wait,
but Pisco, let me ask. Hold on, real quick. Pisco,
do it.
Pisco, do you think that Trump has done that?
Elon Musk has purported to delete and saying he's going to delete USAID, and they're planning to delete the Department of Education.
Gone right now.
Yeah, so USAID is still an entity right now, but they're planning to do it. They're saying they're going to do it. Correct? Yes or no?
You can do it, but not just on their own.
Wait, Lactoid. Are they saying they're going to do it? Yes or no?
What they're saying is that they're going to.
Yes or no?
Hold on. When we're talking about removing an agency, there's different ways you can interpret that. Yes, there's different ways you can interpret that. If we're talking about gutting an agency by using the tools available to the executive, which is managing this agency and appoints employees to this agency, including special government employees, yeah, that's totally fine. If we're talking about actually deleting,
so you're actually saying that it's possible the president could have the authority to just ignore and completely gut an agency.
Sir,
what you're saying.
Sir,
we're gonna need just real quick, Lactoid. We're gonna need one at a time. I know there's a lot of passion here, right? But in interest of the viewers and the audience, and I feel it would be in their best interest to get a full educated account of what's going on. Try not to yell over each other too much this time, right? But go ahead,
Lactoid. That's not what we should be here for. Sorry, Wick.
Thank you, Wick. I appreciate that. No, I think that it depends what you're talking about here. If they're saying, yeah, we're going to dismantle this by using what we can do as the executive of going in, cutting waste, cutting inefficiencies, which absolutely the president has the ability to do. The president also has the ability to delay things. Hold on. If that's what they mean by that, then that's totally fine. If they're going to just unilaterally, hold on. Hey, we just got done talking to you. Give me a second. If we're going to be talking about completely unilaterally deleting an entire agency, I would agree. But the question is, has Trump put us into a constitutional crisis? Not, is it possible that at some point in the future, Trump might put us into a constitutional crisis?
We're deep in a constitutional crisis.
We're deep in one.
Okay, hold on.
So what Lactoid is saying, wait, so I'm responding now. So what Lactoid is saying is, not until we're at the final stage, this is kind of like, if you guys remember Actual Justice Warrior, he's like, not until we're at the stage in which there's a full-on dictatorship and a king, will Lactoid come and Johnny come lately say, okay, I guess it was a fucking constitutional crisis. No, they're clearly planning and edging towards a completely gutting, and Trump is very obvious about it, saying we're getting rid of the Department of Education. Is that, how much more clear could he be?
They said dismantling. Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Okay, but Lactoid,
hold on.
Can you clarify, Lactoid? Like, if someone comes in, appoints a non-government person into this facility and says, "Hey, you have free reign to freeze federal funding to overturn something that Congress has done that is going beyond what an executive order is allowed to do," at what point are you now like, "Oh, it's a crisis"? When it's done? When they say they're going to do it? When it's 50% done? Like, that's just what Pisco's getting at. Like, you're just saying, well, they haven't actually done the thing they're going to say 100% to completion, and therefore it's not a deletion. Like, what's the standard then? It's only when it's done.
So this is a misunderstanding, and I'm sure part of it is the misunderstanding is influenced by Pisco's hyperbolic language here. When we're talking about, I would say that doing the thing that you're saying would be unconstitutional If he does that, then yeah, you could argue that at that point that'd be a constitutional crisis. But everything
so
right now that's been done
federal
has not
funding
been
is
that.
That
He has the right to do that.
illegal? No, he doesn't. The court has said that he has to stop
Yes,
that.
he does. Hold on.
What right?
Doge specifically are special government employees the president has the authority to appoint. They are members of the Treasury. A court decision today, or it was either today or yesterday, came out and said that Doge does have the right to access this information. And the president
to freeze all
Elon is the employee. Elon is an employee.
You're talking about something else.
Freeze all funding.
Hold on,
you just heard him. He said
we're getting there.
Funding.
We're getting there. Trump is Elon Musk is a in this case a special government, or Doge at least is a special government employees. They're made up of special government employees of the Treasury, and they report to Donald Trump, who is the elected president, and
freeze all funding,
and Congress. And yes, you have the right. The president has the right, in order to avoid inefficiencies, to freeze funding, to delay funding. Now, can they abolish it? No, they can't.
Okay, we gotta let people respond. We gotta let people. Hold on,
until at least the end of the fiscal year.
Lactoid, stop.
Yeah, indefinitely.
Until the end of the fiscal year. That's what we just said.
Indefinitely.
No, I just said until the end of. Do you not hear my answers? Jesus Christ.
So do you agree that they pause indefinitely?
No, they don't say it's paused infinitely. They don't go like
Wait.
forever.
Do you agree, yes or no, that they pause the funding indefinitely?
No, they did not say it's infinitely forever or more.
Did
they pause it? They pause it until they have to not pause it, which is within the constitutional authority of the president.
Wait. Is that indefinite or is that definite?
Are you trying to take advantage of people's perhaps lack of knowledge between indefinite and infinitely?
Is that an indefinite or is it a definite end to the pause?
So
you just said he could not pause it indefinitely. I'm asking you.
I'm
asking you a very simple question, and everyone sees you're dodging it. Is it an indefinite pause or is it definite?
It's perfectly acceptable.
No.
Is it definite or indefinite? Is it definite or indefinite?
Yes, hold on, stop. Okay, gang, I thought this was. I'm like, okay, I only got 4 people on. They're usually pretty good. They're usually pretty. This is gonna be a calm conversation. I was fucking wrong. Okay, indefinite.
The stakes are high. It's our country.
I just want. Just real quick. But I do want you to, Lactoid, I do want you to answer Pisco's question. Is it indefinitely or is it definitely that it was paused?
Well, so it can't, legally, it can't be indefinitely in terms of forever. I guess.
Purport to pause it indefinitely or not?
Can you stop? Can you stop? Can you stop for a second? If we're talking about forever, no, it can't be paused forever. There appears to be. Hold on. I can see you. I can see you coming at it. They can't pause it forever. Okay. Now he could say. I don't know. If he did, that's fine as long as he stops before as long as
you're cooked. And you won't answer the fucking question.
Pisco. Let me answer, please, that you jump.
You're not answering the fucking question.
I am. I said I don't know if he specifically put in the order indefinite.
You don't know. You didn't read the fucking pause. Are you that stupid?
Stop.
Okay.
Okay, Wick, you have to take control of this maniac for a second. Jesus Christ. Okay, listen to me. I don't know if in the order they specified that specific word definitely or indefinitely. They said a specific date or not. But the reality is you can. It's perfectly fine to say, hey, we are freezing this for whatever period of time, as long as they unfreeze it by any kind of required time period. This is not violating separation of powers. This isn't violating the constitutional authority granted to the president, regardless of what he says. What are you talking about?
You have to answer the question. The question is the answer you don't know? Whether they pause it.
That's what I fucking asked.
Okay,
you want me to answer it again?
Answer is you don't. So
the word indefinite is not in there.
Wait,
the word indefinite is not in there.
Hold on, Pisco.
Oh my God.
Pisco.
Wait. Did you lie? Did you just lie to all of us?
He knows he's cooked.
Did you just lie to all? Hold on. Hold this.
Can someone link me? Can someone link me this fucking order so I can just?
He's not claiming it says the word indefinite. He's using indefinite means it doesn't give a specific ending point. So
does he have to? Does he have to specify? Does he have to specify a specific endpoint?
Is it reasonable to believe that it's
okay? Let Pisco explain what he means.
He's not going to let me say this point. So Lactoid just told you he does not know whether or not it's indefinite or a definite and on pause. But he told you before that it would be totally unacceptable to have an indefinite pause on funding. That would constitute a constitutional crisis. Ipso facto, his position needs to be, I don't know if there's a constitutional crisis because you don't know if it's definite or indefinite. That's just logic, bro.
No, this is insane. Zatsui just said the word indefinite is not used. So I apologize.
It's not the only way to have an indefinite
pause. Because we're using 2 different definitions.
The word indefinite.
Yes.
What kind of argument is that?
It wasn't an argument. It's not an argument. It was a statement.
Yeah.
You
So
disagree
we're
with
talking.
it?
And now you're
We're-
using it to defend your stupid position.
I didn't
You know what
defend
you're
it.
talking
Stop
about.
talking.
Wait, do you think my
Pisco
position
could.
is? Do you think my position was the word definite or indefinite was used, or was I talking about the substance, whether or not it was an indefinite or definite pause? Don't be a fucking
I
idiot.
answered your
whoa, whoa, whoa.
question directly.
Then it's not
I said
indefinite. Then it's
colloquially,
not
no.
indefinite.
Technically,
It's
yes.
not
it didn't use
indefinite
the
unless
word.
they use the term indefinite. That's
Well, in
your
this
position.
case, yes. In this case, it's not
That's your
indefinite
position,
because
yes. Okay,
yes,
got
Is it possible to
because
say
they're
something is
statutory-
indefinite with using
because
that
they're
word?
limited.
If I say
Because they're
until I
limited.
decide otherwise,
Hold on.
Colloquially,
You
indefinite
fucking
means forever.
what is this fucking semantic ass argument?
Technically
This is
means it
fucking
doesn't
ridiculous.
specify directly.
I'm not the one making this semantic ass fucking
You're
argument.
literally defending yourself
I'm
by
not.
saying
I'm not.
Okay,
saying
okay,
you
okay.
didn't
One at a
know,
time.
so
One at a time.
that's
We're gonna
really
reset. We're gonna
justice.
reset. We're gonna reset. We're gonna reset. We're gonna reset. Okay, so apparently the spending freeze. And to be clear to my audience, what we're talking about now, we're talking about the spending freeze on U.S. aid. Correct? Is that what we're talking about?
On federal financial assistance as defined in the 2-page memo, and then the policy continues. The memo has been rescinded. That's
Does he have the
way
right
they're
to
trying
freeze it,
initial review.
Pisco?
Not indefinitely. You just said it, right?
Wait. But does he have the right to freeze it? Yes or no?
No.
He also doesn't have the right
Yes
to
or no?
freeze it.
Does he have the right to
No,
freeze it?
He does
The
not have the
answer
right
is
to
no.
freeze
The
it
answer-
if
he
it's
does not have the
already
right to
approved-
freeze it.
If it's already approved by Congress.
The answer is
As-
no. He needs to follow the procedure set out by Congress in many different statutes, including the Impoundment Act and other statutes. He has to follow the
Impoundment
law.
Act isn't good
Okay,
law.
I don't think that we have a fucking king like you do who can just
Wait.
ignore
He has the
Congress's
right to.
core
So
legislative
you're wrong.
authority.
He has the right to freeze the funds under the Impoundment Act.
The front. That's
He
not.
didn't follow the
that's
procedures on the Impoundment Act.
No, the Impoundment Act isn't good law. It's been
Okay, all right. So
Go ahead, Zetsui.
Chad
Well, I'm
Haw
not explaining
and
the
New Haven.
Bail me out. Bail me
Wait.
fucking out.
Do you think Chad Haw and New Haven aren't good law?
Wait. Sorry. You just said the Impoundment Act is not
Yes.
constitutional.
As to the deferral. The deferral has been gutted by Chad Haw and New Haven.
So, but you agree that there are procedures by which the president, in order to institute a wide scale or even just a short-term
Yes.
pause on funding, he needs to go through, and that he did not
No.
go through those processes.
No,
Oh, you
those have
think
been
he did?
gutted. Chad Haw and New Haven.
Okay,
So
you know those
just
cases.
for
I
my
know you know those
audiences,
cases, dude.
hold on, just for my
Wait,
audiences
so
and,
let's
and my
dig the fucking nails in.
edification, since I am not familiar with
nails
Chad Hall
in.
or New Haven,
No, there's no
I'm going to give it to
nails.
Zetsway for a minute. Zetsway, can you explain what those rulings did and why it's
Sure.
applicable to the discussion we're having right now?
So the Impoundment Act was
Briefly.
made that allowed for deferrals of like 45 days. That was rescinded. Deferrals and allowed them to basically defer funds, and either House of Congress could veto it. Chad Haw made it so that basically you can't have one house vetoes. They ruled that as unconstitutional. In New Haven, they then said the entire deferral thing had to fall because the link between deferring and the House's ability to get rid of it was inextricably linked. At which point it then
Are you talking
substituted
about
in
legislative
new rules.
vetoes?
No,
Are
I'm
you
talking about
le-
that is part. I mean, that's a way of describing it. Basically, is the way legislature's ability to do it. But that
This
was
is not
part
a
of that.
legislative veto. This is
No,
it's
it was
not on point.
New Haven. I know that's why people disagree with it, but
Okay.
but New Haven shot it down. Have you read New Haven?
I've not read the case that you're referring to called.
You know
New
what I'm
Haven.
talking about, though.
I don't know what that case is. No, I know what I know the case law on
it was
legislative
Reagan
vetoes.
using
This is not.
this.
We're not talking
It
about
is.
legislative
It's
vetoes.
on point.
No,
No,
this is not a legislative
this
veto.
exact. It was about the Impoundment Act. New Haven was about the Impoundment Act. Reagan had tried to defer funds, and they said I could do it under this section, and the court said no, you can't because it fell due to Chad Haw.
Wait, so you're
And then
saying
they
that
substituted
Reagan was
new
not?
things and they've been
you're saying that
amended.
Reagan? You're saying that Reagan? I don't know this chronology. I'm just being upfront with you. You're saying that Reagan was not allowed to impound funds. That was the ultimate decision by the court?
No, the ruling was that basically because the actual
Was that the
he did-
ultimate decision? That they
Let
could
him
not-
explain.
let him
Jesus Christ.
explain. Give
they
him a
made
second.
it. They had it fall because they said it was the part that had already fallen was the ability for the legislative veto, for the ability for one house to say no, you can't defer funds. Chad Haw removed that. Then in New Haven, he goes because that fell, it collapsed the whole thing. That Congress would have never given them the power to defer if they weren't allowed to do the one house denial of it.
The
And so
whole
therefore
thing
they
fell.
collapsed the whole
it
thing.
is your position. Wait. I just want to be clear. It's your position that Congressional Budget Impoundment Control Act of 1974 is not good law.
No,
It's not
I did not
enforced.
say that. The section as to
Okay, so
deferrals has been
is it enforced
updated.
or not?
Not,
Okay, is it
not in that
enforced?
act. It has been overruled by it's been amended.
Okay.
There's
Are
been three
there
amendments.
any procedures that the congressional statutes in force today you would acknowledge under the moniker the Impoundment Act that the president is purportedly supposed to follow? Yes, right?
There are no time limits on it. It's because of the way it was gutted. It's so vague now.
Okay, so is it your
Crisis!
position?
The language? I can give you the language.
Wait. Is it your position? Is it your
Here.
position? Because Lactoid just told you that he thinks that an indefinite pausing of funding that Congress has passed. I'm assuming
Infinite,
Lactoid
'cause
under
indefinite
Article
meaning
1,
infinite.
under no. It doesn't mean infinite. Sorry,
I'm saying
it
he
means
meant that.
indefinite.
Oh,
You
okay.
meant
What I'm
infinite?
saying, just to make my position clear,
Where's
because you
chat?
just really want to misrepresent this. I mean that I don't believe that the president has to specify a timeline about when the freezing ends, as long as the president is following any restrictions on when the freezing has to be up, or when the funding has to be unfreezed.
So now let's follow that line. You're saying the president does not have to follow any specific timeline. Is that fair? That's your position.
No. That's not what I said.
Where does it say timeline? Those are the two I just posted in the
Hold
group
on.
chat.
Let Lactoid clarify. Go ahead.
He doesn't have to specify a timeline as long as he follows any timeline required of him by Congress or the Constitution.
Okay, so
would you agree with that? Wait. Do you agree with that?
No, I do
yes or
not.
no?
No,
You don't. You
Okay,
don't. You think the
Pisco,
president has to
hold on.
specify?
Hold on. Stop. Pisco, why don't you agree with that? Go ahead.
I do not agree that the president, who has not the core legislative authority to appropriate funds, has inherent authority to pause for any significant amount of time constitutionally. We're all going to have disagreements on what that means, just like we are going to have disagreements on what it means for like the First Amendment to whether or not something's defamation, whether or not there's an imminence for purposes of a different statutes. So there's no clear boundaries the Constitution imposes such that I can give you that kind of answer. But we know what we mean here, that the president cannot just usurp in a cute way Congress's ability to pass appropriations and to pause, as Lactoid is suggesting, this is what I mean to say is, without a specific time period established, he says that would be allowed constitutionally.
Wait, let me clarify then.
Can I ask Lactoid a question?
That can't be right. Wait.
Let me give a hypo.
Let Pisco finish. Let Pisco finish.
Let me please finish this. What Lactoid is trying to tell you is that it's conceivable that it would be constitutional, without a congressional statute telling this or suggesting this, for the president to be able to pause all congressional appropriations forever, apparently. So not on a set
he just
schedule.
flips back and forth. You're doing it.
Sorry. Not on a scheduled timetable. That cannot be correct. That cannot be right.
Okay. Now this is the order we're gonna go. I'm gonna be strict with the order because you guys are all doing this. Here's what we're gonna do. Lactoid, you're gonna be able to respond to that, and then we're gonna give it to Soy Pill to ask his question to Lactoid.
I think my question might actually let Lactoid answer better.
Wait. No, this is specifically to something Pisco. Okay.
Yeah.
Pisco, please. So you're telling me that if the president puts forward like an indefinite freeze, but then lifts it the next day, this would be a constitutional crisis because he didn't specify that he was going to be lifting it the next day? Is that your point?
No, that's not my point, because as you remembered, because you wrote down my definition of constitutional crisis, there's a portion there that says a significant and existential threat. And so I think that this threat is significant and
How many days has it been?
Not every indefinite. It's not about the number of days that there has been. It's about the purpose and motives of these people. They're motivated by Project 2025, which you still deny.
Oh
you
my
still think
fucking
they have nothing to
God.
do with Project 2025. No. Why are you saying, oh my God?
No, because here's why. No, here's why.
You're voted for this guy. You're trying to
all right. You can throw all the ad homs you want, okay?
Like you started
throw
your
all the ad
debate
homs
saying
you
that,
want, okay?
like just like you started your debate, right? All the Pisco show, right?
Wait. You can throw all the ad homs you want. That's totally fine. Okay, have fun with that. What I'm saying is, beforehand, you very confidently said, oh my God, if the president freezes funding without setting a definitive timetable, this is awful. It's
unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional.
It's a constitutional crisis. You're saying it's unconstitutional. You're saying it's a constitutional
but that's not my definition for a constitutional crisis.
Okay, sure. Let Lactoid finish.
And so then, if that's all so bad, etc., right? I'm saying, well, what if the president sets forward a freeze, doesn't specify when it ends, and then lifts it the next day, or 2 days later, or 3 days later? How many days has the freeze been in effect, Pisco?
Yes. So
answer that question. How many days?
Hold on. Let Pisco respond.
So the spending freeze started last Monday. So it's been now 8 or 9 days or something.
And that's a crisis.
January 20. So stop. He's trying to conflate, and I can very clearly sort of lay this out for you. Something is unconstitutional. We said at the start, doesn't necessarily mean constitutional crisis. And he knows this. Right? So what we're talking about is
8
something
days is a crisis?
Let Pisco finish, please.
There we go. Right.
Oh, because Pisco doesn't like interruptions. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So he's afraid, and he knows that I am able to make these differences and distinctions known. And so just because I could say that it's unconstitutional for the president to indefinitely suspend the aid and to put a pause on it in any circumstance without congressional approval, doesn't mean that every every instance of that is a constitutional crisis. What we have here that is different, that raises the significance, that raises the intensity and the existential nature, which is in by definition, is one, it applied on a broad scale to all kinds of fucking spending, trillions and trillions of dollars. It applied as part of a clear effort under Project 2025 to bring the Congress to heel. The architects what was the office that instituted this freeze? The OMB. Who are they putting as the head of the OMB? Russell Vought. He talks about this guy, the guy who said he's in a post-constitutional era, which he knows, and he's fucking lying to you. So he's trying to do this little shell game where it's the same thing that Republicans and MAGA people do all the time. You know, you find a little thing, be like, okay, so if you just pause this one little loan to this one student and at one little time, so completely minimizing what's going on and narrowing the focus into what we're talking about here, which is a broad fucking spending freeze of legislative enacted appropriations of all fucking kinds. Okay. Your comparison is fucking stupid.
Wait. And you agree. So your only contention is that he didn't put like a definite time end. If he put the end of the freeze, hold on.
How is that what you took?
Wait. If he froze all the funding you're talking about, and let's say put an end date of like, I don't know, 3 weeks, would that be constitutional?
So it would, in my opinion, still be unconstitutional. Right. I was going off so the reason why I'm focusing on indefinite is because you're now changing what the definition of indefinite is.
No, I'm asking you hypothetical.
Yeah, you're changing what the definition of indefinite is. You said I don't know, and everyone saw you weasel around. So, but what happened is you said it would be, of course, unacceptable for the president to do an indefinite pause. That's what you said. So I'm like, oh, great, because I happen to know that it's an indefinite pause.
Like,
and so now we're doing this little fucking word game. And so
are you going to answer my question about 3 weeks?
But to answer your question, no. If the president put a year-long pause of this con,
I said 3 weeks. I said 3 weeks.
And okay, define it.
Yeah, but you think a year long is okay?
Wait. Are you weaseling? Are you weaseling? 3 weeks? Yes or no?
So this entire debate is going to be
yes or no.
Stop. Wait. This entire debate is going to be a continuum fallacy where we have to say,
wow.
We have to say, look at him. This entire debate is going to be a continuum fallacy, which you could apply to any constitutional principle.
I asked you a question.
I don't know, but yeah. So to answer your question, I believe it is unconstitutional for the president to pause aid without congressional approval. You can always find a carve out. You can always find an exception that proves the rule, right? You know this. You know
for
that
3 weeks.
Yeah. So you understand, right? That you can always find an exception that can prove the rule. And constitutional law is like that. It's filled with these little gaps, and he is trying to take advantage of that and take advantage of the fact that the Constitution is a short document to say, oh, I guess I can't really say anything's constitutional unless you have the precise nanosecond in which it becomes unconstitutional. That's what he's trying to do here. Don't let him distract you. What's going on here is a broad.
I
want to dog.
Yeah, we got to get.
Make him answer this question. No. He has got to answer this question.
Wait. I answered. I said it's unconstitutional. Did you hear me say it?
Wait. 3 weeks. If he pauses it for 3 weeks.
Yes, he just answered that.
Okay, and then I asked why.
Wait a second. Without congressional approval, or I think that there could be a carve out in certain imminent circumstances that the Supreme Court may recognize, and you're going to try to play in the joints here and say that's so now we can have any kind of pause. That's not what we're talking about here. And the other absurdity on your end, which was brought out by the Soy Pill, was you would accept like incredibly long time periods, wouldn't you? You would say a 2 year, right? So let's just put this.
No, I said no.
Let's ask Lactoid directly. Lactoid, is there a what do you think is the time limit?
In fairness to you, you should answer the question. Is a 2 year ban, a 2 year definite pause on all appropriations by the president unilaterally? Is that constitutional?
No.
So
no.
Lactoid also I said the point, but why did he unfreeze it?
The fiscal year, right? The end of the fiscal year. That's what Zetsui said.
Why did Trump unfreeze it?
That's what Zetsui said was like the updated law in this situation. I understand prior to this, there was a 45-day where the president could unilaterally freeze it, and then the Congress could go ahead and veto it after the fact. They just removed the veto, essentially. The president absolutely has the power to freeze funding, right? And spend it within the fiscal year. He can freeze it. There is no requirement that he has to before he freezes it, right? For 8 days. For this fiscal year, yeah.
No, but he could do it again, right? So he could do it for the first fiscal year, pause it, then rescind the pause, then pause it again for the second fiscal year, then rescind the pause.
My understanding is he'd have to spend it.
You'd have to argue.
My understanding is he'd have to spend it.
So wait, hold on. In this hypothetical Candyland world, you're saying that the president can pause all federal funding, congressional approved federal funding for 364 days, spend it all on the last day, and then the next fiscal year just keep doing that, completely subverting the entire purpose of Congress to approve federal funding? No, I don't
advocates
care what you're
like
saying.
this as
Judge.
well.
I want Lactoid to answer.
Well,
this.
You don't. They don't care what you're saying.
We're asking
I don't know. That's a good. Probably.
That
If it's been
can't
all,
be in the
if that's
constitutional
the
line.
answer,
hold on,
That
I
can't
don't
be
know.
right.
Let him answer. You asked him the question.
Yeah,
You got to
there
give him a
you go.
chance to answer.
Crazy.
Go ahead.
Well, he answered. He said,
So-
"I don't know. I don't give a shit what he's about to say."
Yeah,
after
I
this
said,
because
I
it's
don't know, and
irrelevant."
then I
He
looked up and I
thinks
was
it would be
thinking about it.
constitutional to live in a world where Congress just doesn't have any fucking power, and like we can play these
Whatsoever.
little like games where it's like, well, actually, the loophole says if I just spend it all on December 31st,
is
suddenly you don't get to approve
disgusting.
funding. Like, what
And-
the
and-
fuck? Like,
Notice how they haven't even let
standard.
me like complete my answer yet, Wick.
oh, sorry, complete it. Tell me
They're
what
just
else
like
is good.
blabbering and yapping constantly.
Yeah, when you say retarded shit, it makes me upset.
so-
I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
well, yeah, and then apparently on a panel, you just can't help but fucking yap while I'm trying to get my thoughts out. So
You.
my thoughts on this are, thinking about it thoroughly. I think that if you froze funding and then this is reviewed by the courts and the court orders you to like release the freeze, then I would assume yes, then you would have to release it within some reasonable period of time.
Okay, so the court has
Otherwise,
ordered him to
other-
release
the
the
question is
freeze,
not
and
whether
he is
the court-
denying
wait,
these
wait,
court
kind of.
orders. Do you think that's a constitutional crisis when the checks and balances are saying, "Hey, you have to unfreeze
Didn't
this,"
say
and he just
unfreeze
says,
everything.
No.
That's
Yeah,
not
well,
what
he's
they
not
said.
unfreezing the stuff they're telling him to unfreeze anyway. So what does it
That's not
matter?
how- it wasn't even a specific thing. They said they rescind the
They
memos.
said the EPA
exactly
funding.
As though,
The EPA funding is what they told him to unfreeze, and he's ignoring that court order. Is that constitutional?
Not with. It doesn't mean literally. They can't override executive power. It says you can't freeze as related to that memo. There's other reasons you delay funds. There's plenty of reasons why things get delayed outside
you
of
guys
it.
will make
They're
any
saying that you
fucking
don't
excuse.
believe them, though, and I agree with
you
you.
can
This is
delay
what
funds,
Lactoid
yeah.
wants you to believe, right? So
It's
Lactoid
been
is
8
saying-
days. 8 days. That's a crisis,
Lactoid
apparently.
Is saying, Lactoid is saying conceivably in his mind, it would not be a constitutional crisis, obviously, if the president would just, for 364 days, completely pause funding, and then on the last day, undo the freeze, and now funding starts to go through. But of course, given practicalities, it can't go through all in one day just because of the practicalities. And then on the second day, say, okay, another 364 pause, and he thinks that is conceivably not that's not a constitutional crisis. Fair, Lactoid? Is
Well, that
fair?
would
What is
no,
your-
wait,
Case
wait,
law
wait,
on
wait.
this.
That probably would be, because if you're unfreezing on the last day to the point where like the funds
you
can't
wouldn't.
go out like in good faith, like if that
Okay,
was the intention,
Let's say it's
that
a
obviously
week,
would be against, like,
long to get them all out. All right, it's 358 days. Okay,
all the funding gets out.
yeah.
No.
No. That's
Wait,
it's
so-
not a
so
constitutional crisis.
constitutional
So
crisis.
358
If all
days of
funding
freeze,
gets
all
out-
the funding gets out. Congress has no say in what is
Wild.
getting spent on.
Wait,
This
wait,
is not a
wait.
constitutional
If
crisis.
all the funding gets out and a court
Yeah.
hasn't ordered him to spend like within a certain time frame,
Mhm.
why would
yeah,
that?
no, it all gets out. So Congress just has no
cool.
say in how we spend anything, and that's
No,
fine.
no, they
That's
do
not
have a say.
constitutional
He
crisis.
has to spend all of it.
Yeah, no, but he doesn't have to spend what
Is
they
that
told
not
him
a
to spend. He
say?
gets to spend
No,
it on
he doesn't-
whatever he wants. That's what I'm saying. He's
They
freezing the
gave him
funding, and then
mass
he's
discretion on how he gets to spend it and how he gets to
but
delay it.
Lactoid, we're stuck in this formalism game. First of all, I agree. I think the power to spend also, usually implies a timeliness to the spending as well. Obviously, there's going to always be the nature of an executive is there's going to be bureaucratic red tape. We're not unreasonable people here that there's going to be steps and hoops that you have to go through. But let's take a step out of the formalism. What is this really about? This isn't about the pause itself. It's about Trump leading on the legislative branch, on the agencies, to assert his authority and to usurp Congress. His clear intention is to make himself the master of all the government. And we're ignoring that. Like, why should we ignore that when that's clearly his purpose? He wants to centralize authority. That's what they're doing in their Project 2025 agenda. That's what they talk about. And you're acting like it's not real. And you're acting like until we get the point that it's 364 days, we're chicken little. And we have to reach that point where there's no hope for us to fight against. And only then can we start calling it a constitutional crisis.
Hold on. I just said no. There would there would likely have to be like enough time in order to fulfill the obligations set forward by Congress. However, Congress gives the president significant ability when it comes to delaying and deferring funds based on investigations and inefficiencies, which is the whole point of Doge. This isn't about the president usurping power from the legislative branch. It's been 8 days, okay? It's been 8 days. I asked him 3 weeks, and he said 3 weeks would be unconstitutional. Like now you're turning into a year.
And we asked you 1 year, and you said that wouldn't be unconstitutional.
What
would be? What is your standard of a constitutional crisis?
Well, for you, what's your standard? I said 3 weeks. You said it's unconstitutional.
If the
it's a game that you very clearly want to play when it comes to saying, I think it's all going to be spent with
Okay. I'm throwing a flag on the play. Because I think that Pisco made a point that I do want addressed by the other side, but we keep getting bogged down in the details. Which fair enough. You're all lawyers. I get it. All right. But the assertion made by Pisco's side here is that this is just the intention here is what matters. And the intention from Trump and his team is to grant a large amount of power to the executive branch, more so than what they are entitled to under the Constitution. And this is what represents the crisis, if you will. So we could nitpick the individual actions all we'd like, and we will. We got a lot of time in the panel, right?
Yeah, both are necessary. The intent and purpose is really, really fucking important.
But I want to hear, I want to hear Zetzway's and Lactoid's response to the intent here, right? This has been the claim that there is an intent and that these actions showcase the intent, despite how many days or not days, both with the rescinding of the memo, but also, right, not rescinding the freeze when they've been court ordered to. Lactoid and then Zetzway, and then we can go.
Yeah, I think the intention here is to cut government waste and excess inefficiencies, as is the purpose of Doge, as is the specific authorization given to the president under the Impoundment Act to delay funding. In fact, under the original act, it was 45 days, right, until Congress or within Congress could step in. And he isn't even within that 45 days. He isn't even outside that 45 days yet. It's been only, 8 days? I mean, we're even within the period, the old period, which was more strict than the current period, like we talked about. So no, I don't think this is some kind of massive power grab. I think that what it is it's a kind of a belief of, we have to rally around Donald Trump through any means necessary. You've heard them say it, right? He is a demon in their eyes, and they want to obstruct and slow things down. And the best way to do that is to overtly demonize and alarm everybody about things that are relatively milquetoast. 8 days. 8 days, well within the executive authority. The Supreme Court has not come down with a decision on this, okay? I would agree. If he unilaterally destroys the entire agency, or if he ignores the Supreme Court, I've said this before, when it comes to Texas ignoring the Supreme Court on the border, if you ignore the Supreme Court, yes, when you have those kind of issues, like an overt violation of the separation of powers, now you start getting into a constitutional crisis.
Okay,
this right here is well within the purview of what the president's supposed to be doing, which is making sure government agencies function well.
What about ignoring the court orders to unfreeze the funding for the EPA and the other?
So my understanding is it's been 2 or 3 days, and it's not clear exactly what was being ordered to be unfrozen.
Yeah, and it is very clear. The federal courts are saying, hey, you have to unfreeze the funding for the EPA grant awards that is approved in the Inflation Reduction Act already.
No, the statement was that she goes, I'm rescinding, that goes, anything that, if you're freezing due to the memo, then you have to unfreeze. And she's going, and so when she's going so he goes, you don't, he goes, so, and they provided no evidence that so they go plaintiff Doe 1 doesn't have access to their funds. And so you'd say, well, obviously that's because of the memo. He goes, well, we don't know why. It's bullshit. He goes, but if all of them remain frozen, that would be evidence. If one guy is being frozen, there's other reasons why there could be delays, but until we have that kind of information. But I would agree that
this is beautiful, and it goes to the Soy Pill's point. So what do you think about this rescinding? So what they did is they said, oh, we're rescinding the memo.
Yes.
But we're not rescinding the policy here.
Correct.
What do you think about that action? Because, I have a quote from a federal district court that is pretty scathing about what they're trying to do here. But you guys seem totally unperturbed. You guys seem incredibly blasé, oh yeah, totally normal for him to do that. And yeah, so here's the quote, right? By rescinding the memorandum that announced the freeze, but not the federal funding freeze itself, it appears that OMB sought to overcome a judicially imposed obstacle without actually seizing the challenged conduct. The court can think of few things more disingenuous. Preventing a defendant from evading judicial review under such false pretenses is precisely why the voluntary cessation doctrine exists. This recision, if it can be called that, appears to be nothing more than a thinly veiled attempt to prevent this court from granting relief. That is a district court judge. What do you think of that?
I read it too.
Do you have an opinion on it?
Are you concerned that the administration is doing that? Do you think that it's a portent for their unwillingness to listen to the court and trying to evade judicial review? You guys don't have a fucking word to say about it.
I don't agree.
What it suggests about the purpose, the nefarious purpose behind all these actions, and you're trying to act like we're stupid.
Why did they say they withdrew it? Do you remember? Why did they? So they said I'm withdrawing it because of it has become a.
Who cares? We all know why.
It's become a. Say it. Come on, you know it.
Who the fuck cares?
They're saying what is their intention? They told you their intention. What was it?
to evade judicial review. They don't want to be tied up.
There was
in the
one
courts.
word, starts with an S.
Stop. They literally
Come on,
want
dude.
to undo. Dude, stop.
Unbelievable.
They are trying to evade judicial review. Yes or no? Does that
Okay.
agree with that?
What
No.
was the
Judicial review?
word? I really want to know.
Wait, you don't agree that they're trying to evade judicial review? You disagree with this court?
Yes, I don't agree. Actually, no. So we don't have that. Not enough time has passed.
Holy shit! How naive are you?
No.
Again, you don't even know why they claim
we
they did it.
rescind
So
the memo,
fine.
but not the policy. And you're like,
Well,
oh
can
yeah.
I wait?
did they
Can we
rescind
hear
the memo?
what do they claim?
They
What do you
didn't
think
rescind the
this is?
memo because the policy wasn't. I'm like saying, well, no. Tell me. You guys both should know this. You
No,
know
tell
the
us
answer.
because I don't know and I
judicial
want to
review.
know.
Why don't you
Like,
just tell
Because
us?
they
Well,
said it
that's
became a
judicial review.
sideshow. That their thought was saying that because of that the exceptions and things that were being done, it was too vague and creating chaos. And so saying we're drawing this shit because apparently people are freezing shit they're not
But they
supposed to.
didn't. No,
But
no,
they're
they
still
just
freezing
went through
shit.
the
That
memo.
they're sort of saying that. However, the
No,
memo
no.
is still
They said
causing
the-
chaos now. The policy,
no,
though,
they said
there
the policy
can be
didn't
reasons to
change.
freeze. Yes,
No,
because
no,
but they're
I'm
saying
sorry.
that what people
I'm
are
not
taking
moving on,
from the
Zetsu.
memo
Zetsu,
is
I'm
not what they're
moving on.
saying.
I'm not moving on. So
Okay.
we're just going to talk about the purpose of the rescission. You said that they said they rescinded it because it's a sideshow. Do you
became a
believe them when
sideshow.
they say that, or do you think
You
that
don't
it was
think it
because
did?
to evade judicial review?
You don't think it became a
I
sideshow?
just want to. I want to ask a question. Do you think that they evaded that they rescinded the memo? But kept the policy to because it's quote unquote a sideshow, or do you agree with the court when they said it was a clear attempt to evade judicial review? Which do you think is more accurate?
I wouldn't agree with either of those. I'd say I don't believe I have evidence to say it's evading a judicial review yet because of the few days.
You are so
If-
fucking. That's
If
so crazy.
all of them remain
It
frozen,
has been
then
only
it
like a couple
absolutely
days.
is. If only one guy gets frozen and everyone else gets unfrozen, then it's not. Do you disagree?
Can
You think
both
if one
Lactoid and
person
is
Zetsu,
frozen,
can you
the order was
guys
based on the
explain?
memo.
For that
Can
memo
both of you
reason?
explain to me, like, can you tell me the hypothetical situation, which a constitutional crisis, like, let's say everything we said was true, what would that look like if they really were intending to usurp Congress's federal funding power? That if they were intending to consolidate power in the executive branch, what would that look like to you? And what would it look like 8 days in? Because apparently it wouldn't look at all like this. It would be something totally different and totally much more extreme. So please explain to us how we are being hyperbolic, how we are freaking out over nothing, and what it would actually look like if this was really happening.
Exactly how
Yeah.
Nixon or Reagan did it would be worse, significantly,
Well,
obviously.
Oh my god.
I think the answer is pretty straightforward, right? If they
What do you mean?
if they
You
actually
don't
like
agree?
But can we
Hold on,
sorry,
can you
sorry.
when you say how Nixon or Reagan did it, I understand that you understand what you're saying, but can you give us a specific example?
Sure. So Nixon specifically just made the argument that he basically all grants by Congress and budgets were basically up to his discretion. They're guidelines. I can spend it. I can not spend it. Specifically, it was he tried to just remove half of the budget for the water. Like they were getting here's $10 billion for water treatment. He goes, fuck it, I'm cutting it down to $5 billion. Why? Your $10 billion is a suggestion. I don't have to fulfill it. Under Reagan, what he did was he basically had delayed things and saying that you guys are spending too much, and I asked that you guys lower the spending. And so in both those situations, he's saying the actual policy itself, I'm really saying I will not do these funds. This one, he's not saying I will not pay out these things, and because of that, it hasn't.
That's exactly what they're doing, Zetsu.
They're saying they will. They're not. They're deleting them.
They're saying we're identifying fraud and waste, and we're not going to let it happen. They're not saying we're identifying fraud and waste, and we're going to continue spending it. They said
they don't have to pay for fraud and
Nixon
waste.
didn't say fraud and waste. Nixon just said, "I'm just doing it because fuck you."
Yeah.
You think the government has an obligation to pay for fraud and waste?
If it's congressionally approved, yeah, actually they do.
But
so.
the specific fraud and waste here is not congressionally approved.
No, you
It's
can't
literally
approve
laid out in
fraud
the
and waste.
IRA. It is already
President can
approved. We're
determine-
talking about the EPA.
I don't even think Congress can approve fraud. Like what?
Oh my God, what they define as fraud and waste is
determination about what
different.
fraud
Sorry.
and abuse is and waste is, right? The president can come to that his own determination and identify things as fraud, waste, and abuse, and then unilaterally choose to ignore it and not pay it. Is that what you're saying,
You
Lactoid?
disagree.
Oh, the courts can overturn him. Yeah, if he
Yes.
identifies fraud and waste,
Apparently
and it
not,
turns
but they
out
could
that
just
it's not
fucking
fraud and
ignore it.
waste, the court can overturn him.
No,
No, they
the
can't.
question
He's
is
just
whether the
ignoring
court.
it.
Wait, the question is not whether the court can overturn it. The question is it illegal, unconstitutional, concerning to you, Lactoid? Any of those three?
I guess it depends on if I agree with him that it's fraud and waste.
No, him to have the power to buy his own account, right? It's not about whether or not he's
Yes,
right.
That's
It's
fine. No,
about
wait. It
the
does have to do with.
argument.
Whoa. It does have to do with whether or not he's right. The executive, of course, has the ability to again freeze funds while they're investigating inefficiencies. And if it's like clearly an inefficiency, president isn't mandated to have to pay spend that money.
Okay, so then that's what what
On the
Zetsu is
inefficiency,
saying, right?
on the
So
inefficiency.
what Zetsu is saying is the goal is clearly to affect the spending level, and that's what he was trying to distinguish the Reagan example from Trump. And you're saying no, clearly the executive has some responsibility, even an obligation. You're saying to identify those areas and
To
to
identify
stop the
fraud
funding,
and waste. Yeah.
to,
Now,
and
now,
to,
just to be
affect
clear,
the spending
the
level,
funding,
and that's the
not
distinction.
necessarily,
That's been completely debunked by me just now.
not necessarily affect the fund, like the actual spending level. That I'm a little bit unclear on. I don't, for sure, the executive isn't mandated to spend money on fraud and waste. If there's like funds freed up from identifying and removing fraud and waste within the discretion of the executive branch, and then they spend that money on other things, or they partner with other agencies that spend that money on those things.
Questions, Lactoid.
And, yeah, and the executive decides these things. That's why the Impoundment Act
the executive gets to decide.
This is why.
Yeah.
Yes, this is why the Impoundment Act literally gives the executive the ability to delay funding. That's why they put that in there, for the executive to identify fraud and waste
under the provisions that Congress provides, and under the procedures that they provide
which is fraud and waste, which is eliminating fraud and waste. That's specifically identified.
So what?
Does the president
wait, hold on.
Does the president have to comply with those requirements?
We got to hinge on the fact that Lactoid said fraud and waste is whatever I agree with the president to be, which is the most nebulous, stupid fucking definition ever. It's only a crisis if I disagree with it. That's what you said.
No. You asked me, would I think it'd be a crisis? I think it would be a crisis if I don't think it's fraud and waste potentially, but ultimately it's the court that decides whether or not it's fraud and waste.
What if the Democratic president comes in and says, "Hey, all this Defense Department spending, it's all a waste, and we're not gonna spend any of the entire Defense Department is a waste." And so I'm not deleting the agency, but I'm not deleting the agency.
He disagrees, so it's not a crisis.
Wait. I think that you could, like, there's probably a fuck ton of fraud and waste happening in the Pentagon. But yeah, if you went in and then in bad faith removed all of it, I would agree that he's targeting more than just fraud and waste. This is targeting for specific policy purposes.
Let me ask, because I have a question now.
Waste or fraud.
The Supreme Court, not you or me. It's the Supreme Court.
So the Judicial Department gets to decide what's waste and fraud. But what if Congress disagrees?
Yes, ultimately.
Congress says, no, it's not waste. We think it's not wasteful to send money, for example, to Ukraine. We don't think that that's waste. We don't think it's fraud. We think
you're right. It's immoral.
There's some 10% that's going to fraud, but that's the cost of doing business in Ukraine. And so we don't think it's waste or fraud. And so we want all that money to go out. And they disagree with the Judicial Department. They disagree with the Executive Department. Who wins?
If Congress specifically said, like, identified this as not being like fraud and waste, then it'd be I don't think that'd be a good faith argument that, hey, this is fraud and waste. And I think the court would, and I think the Supreme Court decides ultimately what is fraud and waste. The Impoundment Act specifically gives the executive the authority, the discretion here to freeze funding and identify fraud and waste. That is specifically that is specifically within the act. The president has the ability to do this, and so yes, the president does have the ability to do that.
You understand that the reason they're doing this is they want to challenge the constitutionality of the Impoundment Act. You realize that, right? That they're going to be in court in the next few months arguing that the entire Impoundment Act is unconstitutional. And you're right here like a sucker arguing in the weeds of the Impoundment Act when their entire purpose of doing this, and if you read Russ Vogt and what he's talking about, and with explicit reference to impoundment, he's trying to go to court and saying this entire stuff is unconstitutional. And you're here
they might
like
fight for that.
Wait.
They might fight for that. But hold on. They might fight for that, but the president has authority to freeze funding to investigate fraud and inefficiencies, which is Doge's whole purpose. The whole point is to go in. That's why the Doge employees are going in there, literally to identify. Holy shit, we are spending all this bullshit. They're literally look at all this shit they're identifying. They're
tweeting out lies. First of all, they're tweeting out lies about Politico. About
can you give us an example of some of those lies?
Misrepresenting.
Just real quick.
So they're implying that they're spending. Well, go ahead, Pisco.
Yeah, just give us one specific example.
$8 million or even I thought it was billion or million dollars on Politico, and we're funding journalists when all that is a tool that Politico puts out to analyze legislation that all of these offices, including the people who are complaining about it, their offices use this tool to analyze data on legislation and pretending like this is us funding journalists to put out anti-Trump narratives or something ridiculous, because they literally just don't understand. This is Elon's whole MO. It's move fast, break stuff, but not know what the fuck you're doing. Go into a situation, not understand why all this funding is going out, completely remove all of it, and then slowly realize I'm a fucking moron. I have to put all this back. Like, this is what's happening right now, and we're hiding the entirety of this like power grab under, oh well, it's fraud and waste, and we're just identifying that as if we're not. And like this idea that like, oh well, it's only been 8 days. Again, Lactoid, I'm sorry, I'm not saying you dodged this question because you didn't get the opportunity to answer. What would this look like if this was 8 days into what we're describing as happening? What would it look like? Because according to Zetsui, it's, oh well, Reagan would be a little more explicit in pausing the funding and saying, I don't want to do that, as if this is not exactly what's happening with this EPA like court order defying. He's just like, oh, like what would actually be happening? What would it look like? Because apparently we're just being hyperbolic.
If it was a delay, if it was not a delay, if it was a, like within 8 days, they said, we are like literally deleting this agency. Like, and not just like we're going to move funds, we're going to freeze funding. But if they actually not just say it, okay, if they actually do it, if they actually delete the agency.
No. This isn't my question. This isn't my question. My question is 3 days into this, you wouldn't be able to tell if this is actually what they're doing. You can only know once they've already done it. That's what you're telling me? No matter what they say they're going to do, no matter what Project 2025 lays out, it's only known that they're doing something unconstitutional once it's already happened? Is that what you're proponing?
Not necessarily, right? If they say,
like, tell me what it would look like.
Sure. If they say like an explicit detail, because again, this is a crisis, there's a high standard here. If they say like, hey, the Supreme Court sends us an order, and we are like, they say we are not going to comply with this order, fuck the Supreme Court. That would be a big deal.
So if they say, ignore the courts, it's Trump administration ignoring the courts right now. Would that not fall under that?
So from what Zetsui is saying, the actual memo was rescinded in accordance with the court order.
Freezing isn't stopped. They're still freezing the funds. So it doesn't matter. They're ignoring it.
It doesn't unfreeze everything. It says unfreeze everything as it relates if you've been frozen
right.
due
and if
to the memo.
And if the federal court says, now you have to put this funding back, and they say no, even though the court is mandating it, is that not ignoring the courts?
To the memo. Which one hasn't been unfrozen that was due to the memo?
The EPA funding. Do you want me to send you the link?
Not all of it. The thing is,
it doesn't matter if it's not all of it. They're freezing it. What are you fucking talking about?
There are rational reasons why you can cause delays. That's why the judge specifically said it has to be done. She said specifically, act as though the memo wasn't engaged right now. And again, and actually, I would agree with you guys. That goes, especially I guess in a couple of days because of the chaos that's happening. But if they don't unfreeze shit, they're not like, well, it's just casual. It goes, bullshit. You're doing it because of the memo. Like, we know you are. And the thing is, and I'd agree with you, the problem is that right now, when they go, one guy's stuff is still frozen. Why isn't she saying all of them are? Why aren't they all frozen still?
$5 billion worth of funding is just one dude.
Frozen. You agree? USAID is completely paused, right? Zetsu?
Did she? I don't think her ruling wasn't on USAID. I think it was on the.
I'm asking you the question. Do you think USAID is completely paused?
Yeah, but I don't think there's an issue with USAID. This is.
You don't think
there's no issue with it being frozen?
Well, no, I can say that the law doesn't. Yeah, no, the law. I mean, allows, so that budget doesn't have a timeline. It doesn't say like disperse funds by X day, and so the court's ruling isn't about that. There's two separate freezes going on.
I want a commitment. I mean, a lot of this will be tied up in litigation. But if the policy of the administration past 365 days is still to pause all U.S. aid, will you say there's a constitutional crisis? Either of you?
Absolutely. If he tries, yes. Well, no, it doesn't even have to go that far. Just so we're clear that we've had case law on this as well. It's going to be a reasonable standard. We have case law on this where it says, can we say, did you fulfill the budget? If they stop until the last week and then suddenly just give it all to one guy, you go, you didn't faithfully adhere to it. The courts have said that basically going, there is an expectation that you might have money left over. You might complete the task at a certain time. There's plenty of discretion you might have that we can't just rule on every single thing. But if you freeze half of it, you're not faithfully doing it. You're just doing it to freeze half of it. And so you're going to have to make a case that says, if I came 10% in on a budget, go, hey, I was just being efficient. But if you go, no, I removed 10% because fuck you, then that would be. But if they start doing
that's Soy Pill's point, and it's such a good point, which is the who decides question, right? Congress is the one that's supposed to decide what. No, Congress is the body.
Pass a law then.
Congress is the body. Congress is the body that's supposed to decide on efficiency, on fraud, on waste, and to make the determinations of funding. They have the core legislative authority to do that. They're the only ones that are supposed to do that, not the courts and not the president. And we're acting and we're sitting here like it's even conceivable that this is all being done in good faith to put a hamper down on funding for efficiency. How is it efficient for us to, without any notice of the agencies, just immediately stop all federal financial assistance, don't tell the USAID employees don't come into work, do all this subterfuge, do this kind of rescinding little bullshit? Do you guys think that the administration is acting in good faith? I want to ask that. Do you think that the administration is acting in good faith?
based on the fact that like the investigations that Doge is doing and they're going through data and they're actually acting immediately, right? Yes, it does seem like they've frozen the funding and they're actually going in and investigating, looking for fraud and abuse, which is what they statutorily have the right to do. And by the way, when it comes to defining what like legal terms are going to mean here, when it comes to interpreting them, the Supreme Court has the say. They are the ones who are going to define. Yes. And so when Congress under the Impoundment, and so when the Impoundment Act specifies that the president has his power when it comes to inefficiencies and fraud and abuse, then the Supreme Court is the one to decide what Congress meant by that, because the Supreme Court interprets the law.
They're not following the impoundment. I don't know why we have to keep doing this. The court
why would they?
The DC District Court, the DC District, yeah. So Zetsu is saying they're not.
Balanced budget and emergency deficit control.
Okay, I want a clear answer because I don't understand anymore. Right now. Just so I get a clear answer. Raise your hand if you think they are following the Impoundment Act. Raise your hand. Just raise your hand.
Yeah, I'll say they are.
Okay,
it's not relevant.
Okay.
Well, just to be clear, and there's a slight disagreement here between me and Zetsui. So I think that the Impoundment Act is still like most of it, including the ability for the president to defer, like that's good law. I understand that the amendments altered the what Congress can do about it, but that doesn't mean that like the rest of it has been removed.
Okay. Yeah,
so you don't believe you believe New Haven didn't happen. Okay, fine.
New
Haven didn't happen. That's fine.
New Haven did happen, but that affected my understanding Congress's ability to engage.
That was Chadha.
Oh, okay. Did New Haven remove the ability of the president to delay funding?
It substituted it, and then Congress then put it into law in the Budget Act. What is it called? They then enshrined it in Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of
1974.
Sorry, other one. Balanced Budget and Emergency Deficit Control Requirements Act of 1987.
Okay, so they kept it. They just moved it to a different.
No, because Chadha struck down part of it. Then in New Haven, they found that they were inextricably linked. This is only as to the deferral. And then because that fell, they then said, well, then does he have any power to defer? And then they created this. The court basically laid out the two sections, and then they put it into that Budget Control Act. Here, so
your answer to Wick was it's irrelevant whether the president follows the Impoundment Act.
As to deferrals, it's not good law anymore. That's not what you're supposed to follow.
Okay, what are we supposed to follow?
He is following.
Help me understand.
Sure, I guess he's following it, but it's like saying I'm following a law that isn't passed yet.
Okay, is he following this 1987 Budget Act? That you were saying is the relevant.
How loose it is. It's an argument. You'd have to make the case as to whether he's doing it for one of those valid reasons.
What do you
think? You think that's bullshit? Like they do. I'd probably go at the moment 60-40 towards yes, but man, can it tip quickly? Because the fact is, so I think the pause thing was incompetence.
So you're coming in here with a very strong opinion, and you're 60-40 on whether or not it actually is a constitutional crisis.
What's my strong opinion?
That it's not a constitutional crisis. Correct. But you're coming in here and now you're like 60-40 as to whether or not it's actually doing something that's illegal.
If I don't agree with it, what do you think should happen? What do you think I think should happen? That means I'd make that argument to a court and convince them. If I fail to convince them, then I lose, and that's okay.
Okay,
so,
and then
is it
if
correct
I think it's bad that the court disagrees with me, then I'm supposed to lose.
Okay, so the court, whatever the court says, sorry. So long as there's not a court final order on an issue, there's no constitutional crisis. Is that fair?
No, it's saying that no. I don't even know.
Okay, but you said if I disagree with that, I'll go to court. No one's denying you would go to court if you disagree with it. The question is, when can you say that it's a constitutional crisis? And I think you can say it before you go to court if you're, by your own terms and admissions, not following the law.
Is every single Supreme Court case then must be a constitutional crisis? I guess we're always in one. I guess.
No. Come on.
No,
we're talking about here.
Tell me the Supreme Court case where both sides agree on everything. There's no dispute. They disagree, which means one of them says they can't just accept the decision.
We are not this is sophistry. We're not talking about any legal issue, any violation of the law, any unconstitutional action. We are clearly talking about, we laid out at the start, deep structural tensions between the branches that are being undermining the overall structure of the Constitution and our government, which you guys, I think, agreed. If the president is, you don't believe he is currently because you're, I don't know what, but if you believe he's undermining the core appropriation power of Congress, then that clearly would suffice to say so. And you're basically saying, well, there would have to make arguments in court.
An unreasonable delay.
You wouldn't have to make.
That's an unreasonable delay. Is just that. It's an unreasonable delay.
What's reasonable?
But me saying it's unreasonable.
I don't think it's like a threat to the structure here. If the president is allowed if the law is like the president has the right to delay funds in good faith while they investigate like inefficiencies, etc. Like I don't think it's a constitutional crisis when the question is like, well, what is like I guess good faith here has to go to the Supreme Court. I think that's perfectly fine. Like that is something that the Supreme Court like should be ruling on because, like Zetsui's saying, like this is sort of intentionally vague. But when it comes like if I don't know if the president says "fuck you, Supreme Court," I am not going to follow your ruling on this. Oh, and also I've deleted 3 agencies while you were gone. Like actually remove them. Then yeah, we could have a problem for sure.
What if it's
then it'd be a crisis? I'll use the same hyperbolic language here. Yes, it would be a crisis at that point.
So Lactoid, if they're like, okay, the Department of Education still exists, but we're firing all the staff, we're pausing all the funding indefinitely. Sorry, for no set schedule when it's going to come back. We are reappropriating the buildings for a different purpose. At what point were you like, okay, they are saying the Department of Education still exists, but that's clearly just a formalism and it's effectively gutted. Would that point ever exist, or would he literally have to say the Department of Education is no more?
I think that this could happen in a couple ways. It could be that the Department of Education is like actually removed. It could be that funding is like basically delayed indefinitely beyond.
My hypothetical. They fire everybody.
Yeah, you can fire everybody.
They pause every single spending on it. They shut down all the websites.
For how long?
363
They don't
days.
say. They don't say.
They don't say. Okay.
No, let's say they say it. They say it for 360 days, and by the time it comes back.
Say it. I just want to do that one first.
Let's let Pisco do his own hypothetical.
Yeah, my bad. I went off of you. The Soy Pill.
No, you're good.
But my question is, let's say they don't say it. They just say we're firing every single person in the Department of Education. We're pausing all of their funding indefinitely. We're not going to tell you when it ends, and all the websites are shut down. Where we have the executive, we have the power to do that, and we're using their buildings for housing for migrants. Would you say, okay, constitutional crisis because you can't destroy an agency?
If they're using it for if they're using it for like migrants and the migrants like living situation is not planned to expire like by the timeline set, then maybe, because I think that'd be very strong. In terms of like, well, there is a timeline set, right, with the end of the fiscal year at the very least. And then if we want to go into the original Impoundment Act, we're talking about 45 days.
But they fired all the people who they fired all the people who received the funds, right? They fired all the people who would
do that.
They closed the bank accounts of the Department of and they closed the bank accounts of the Department of Education, so they can't. They're not even in a position to receive the funds, and they made it so that
I'm answering the question. I'm trying to answer the question. If they did that, and then they did like nothing in the meantime, and then like, wow, like a week has gone by, they've done nothing, they've just kept it shuttered, and then another week has gone by and they've done nothing, they just kept it shuttered, then like the argument for it being in bad faith, for it not being to investigate inefficiencies, but instead for it being for like a sole like policy reason, then that argument gets stronger and stronger the more time goes on.
Yeah, but what if the inefficiency is, I think this entire department is a waste and I want to get rid of it?
But if immediately,
which is what they're saying.
But if immediately, right,
yeah.
like if immediately special government employees that report to the president are going in and like combing through the records during this time period, looking for waste, looking for fraud, identifying waste, identifying fraud, reporting this back to the president, reporting this to the Congress, then this, I think, provides a very strong argument that this is in good faith to remove government
the standard
waste and abuse.
As long as they're still looking at it, it's not in bad faith, but whatever they come out, no matter what they say in terms of what is waste and inefficiency, which, by the way, they say the entire department is inefficiency, or they're coming out and saying, oh, all this spending on Politico, which they literally don't understand, is waste and inefficiency and fraud and corruption. So as long as they're saying that they're doing it, then somehow it's okay and it's not in bad faith.
If they're sending in special government employees to investigate fraud and waste, and in the opinion of the person who just got elected, yes, this is fraud and waste, right? I'm the executive.
So whatever Trump says is fraud and waste.
I make these calls, right? The president's well within his rights to be doing this. If the courts review the actions and decide, hey, like the executive here did not identify fraud and waste, there was actually a policy reason that was underneath all of this, then he would lose.
I have a question.
And then if he ignored
no, go back. What's the policy? What's the policy reason? What's the difference between I think the entirety of the Department of Education is a fraudulent, wasteful organization and I want to get rid of it, and what's a policy that is different from that? Like, my policy is that the education should be different.
Well, that's kind of to my question. Lactoid, just real quick, I'll let you answer, but I want to maybe tackle it from a slightly different angle, but it's related. Can Trump, in your opinion, say the Department of Education is fraudulent and wasteful, so we're just going to end it?
So the president has to. You can't just end it, the whole thing. You
Okay,
can't.
so we can't. That's the answer.
You can't. You
Cool.
can't just end the whole thing.
Okay.
But
What does that mean? What do you mean you can't just end it?
You can't just say like the
You
entire
can't just like
department is
flip
like
a switch. You
officially
can't
gone.
Thanos snap it out of existence.
Yeah. You can't Thanos snap it. Right?
Okay, so good thing he can't do that. So what would he do if he wanted to completely eliminate it, but still with it within legal bounds?
Now the agency is like full of fraud or anything like along those lines. He can go in and he can like meticulously go through and remove the fraud. The agency itself has.
We can't keep letting you do this. You can remove the fraud. What's the fraud? He says, "I want to get rid of all of it," which is first of all way past your standard of whether or not he said, "I want to delete it all." He's literally saying that, but now he's doing it under the guise of fraud and waste. What is fraud and waste? If he just says the whole thing is fraud and waste, now that's okay. He can just get rid of the whole thing.
Nope. Do you know what you'd do if he did that?
Not?
What would you do? Well, no, what would you do? So let's say he does that. What would you do? There's an action. No. You go to the court because you say that
the courts that he is
and then if he said I fired everyone just because fuck you all, and they all said,
only if he admits it literally, I'm doing this for no reason, is it suddenly illegal? If he says actually it's because there's so much fraud, there's so much waste, and we're getting rid of all of it, and he cuts 95% of it, suddenly that's okay because you said it was fraud and waste, right?
You think you can convince a judge of that?
Well, he would have to first of all, he's appointing a bunch of loyalist judges, and second of all, he's ignoring the fucking judges that are saying to do otherwise. So what does it matter?
He said there's so much
preliminary injunction, and
he'd have to spend the money to like advance the purpose. And so there's ways you could do this. You could partner with the Department of State.
I'm putting money into the charter school.
And the Department
all
of State,
the money's in the charter schools now.
The Department of State could be using funds from USAID to accomplish the purpose, a shared purpose between the Department of State and USAID. That is a perfectly fine use of funds within USAID, right?
That's fine.
If trying to find it, but I got a question for you guys actually, because that's a good question, right? What if an agency, let's say USAID, for example, like let's say Doge went through the books and released all the spending, and hypothetically, you got to play the game here, okay? Hypothetically, what if all of it was actually like obviously fraud and waste to the point that you guys would like 100% agree, yeah, this is fraud and waste? Then
you have to go to Congress.
Then because the Impoundment Act gives the president the authority to suspend operations and to hold freezing or free funding in order to...
100%. Wait. I'll bite this. Wait, no, I'm agreeing. I want to agree with you.
Let him finish. Let him finish. Go ahead.
In order to address...
I can just agree with you.
I know. I get to near the end and you're like, I know what he's going to say. Just please. Maybe not everybody in the audience does, okay? So when it comes to, I got to freeze the funding in order to address this fraud and waste. If all of it was fraud and waste, that's a good fucking question. Like, would you mandate? No, the president has to spend money on overt fraud and waste.
Yes. Okay. In a magical Candyland world where the entirety of the DOE is fraud and waste, and he exposed that through releasing the records, I would be okay with him freezing that funding, addressing this, and going through Congress and saying, "Hey, look at this. This is what is happening."
Under the law.
We need to change this, and not, hey, I'm going to delete this entire organization. It's a fraudulent organization. It's gone, which is what he is saying. Like, you're arguing way to the left of what Trump's even saying at this moment anyway.
Wait, hold on, quick. Wait. I want to address that. I want to address that specifically. So you're saying he could freeze the funding, perhaps longer than 8 days.
Under the Impoundment Act.
Yes, under the Impoundment Act, he could freeze the funding because all of it's fraud and waste. And then after all the fraud and waste has been identified, probably takes longer than 8 days, he would go to Congress and then ask the whole agency to be deleted?
Wait a second. So yes. So the president.
I was asking the Soy Pill.
If he follows, I want to give you my opinion. All right.
Okay.
If he follows a congressional statute that allows him to pause aid, he's obviously within his rights. If Trump were following the Impoundment Act, we'd have a different fucking situation. He's not following the Impoundment Act, but. Yes, if he followed the Impoundment Act and he brought all the evidence to Congress and Congress did not act, he is bound by that. Congress is the one who gets to decide. So at the end of the day, it could be definitive proof and the president shows it to Congress and Congress is like, yeah, we'll deal with it next year. Do you think the president can just stop it? Even if it's provable, verifiable fraud, he follows the Impoundment Act and Congress is like, we're going to release the funds anyway. Obvious fraud, but we don't care because we're just evil people. You were like, the president can still pause it.
If they said, we agree this is fraud and abuse under the definition we put in the Impoundment Act, but we're going to fund it anyway, that goes to the question, does Congress have the authority to fund fraud and abuse, which I don't think they do.
No. Who decides? Is the president
The Supreme
gets to
Court.
unilaterally?
The Supreme
But let's
Court.
say the Supreme Court says political question. We're not handling it. The Supreme Court doesn't handle it. You don't get that out. My question is, what do you think is constitutional? Do you think the president, on his own account, gets to say after he's showed the definitive proof of fraud and he's followed the procedures of the Impoundment Act, and Congress says, yeah, we're releasing the funds anyway? In that situation, do you think the president has the right to say, nope, I am subverting Congress and we're stopping the funds anyway?
I think if the president I'll go through the whole scenario. I think if the president in good faith freezes the funds and then identifies everything, might take longer than 8 days, and then goes to Congress and Congress looks at everything. If in scenario A, they said this is fraud and waste, you're right, but fuck you, we're going to fund it anyway. Then I don't think the president, then I don't think the president has is required to fund it at that point, because the Impoundment Act specifically allows the president to delay in the cases of fraud and abuse, identify and remove fraud and abuse. Now, in scenario B, if Congress says, we've reviewed all this, and in our opinion, all the things that you have identified are specifically not fraud and abuse, so you better go back and fund them, then I think it probably would be.
That is dangerous. So what was just told to you, right? What was just told to you is
dangerous.
It is dangerous what you just said.
Boss.
The president.
Let him explain why. Pisco, explain why. Go ahead.
Crisis.
Yes, right. Because the question is who decides. All right. Here we're inventing these hypotheticals where there's perfect information, and so obviously that's not going to be in the real world. But you use the perfect information. It's very helpful to see where we're at. So yes, even assuming Congress sees this obvious case of fraud, 99% fraud, complete destruction. Like it is horrible what's going on. He follows the Impoundment Act in that he initially freezes it, but he's time limited under the Impoundment Act, and he has to go through the procedures. And the end result is Congress does not sign off to the impoundment of those funds and doesn't sign off to those being canceled. And so under the procedures, the normal procedures, the funds should be released because Congress says, even though there's fraud and abuse, we've seen it, we've seen you go through the procedures, but the process is at an end. We're releasing the funds. At that point, does the president get to say, no, I'm not letting that happen?
You re-asked the question. Like, does Congress have the right to order funding for what they themselves specifically say is fraud and abuse?
That's not the question.
That is the question.
That is
that's
not
critically important. Yes, that is.
No. That's not the question.
I laid out two scenarios.
Enough.
Lactoid. It's a dumb semantic where only in the scenario where Congress is like, yeah, we're evil and we love committing fraud, is this somehow now something that will go back to the president?
But I'll bite it.
That's not how it works.
Pisco's biting it. Pisco's question.
When is he not chomping at the bit? Come on.
No. I'll absolutely bite it. That the determination over where funds goes is Congress's alone. And if it's the case, right, you could say it's unconstitutional or illegal for Congress to approve fraud, but that's not a justiciable question. That's not a question for the president to decide. And even if it is illegal for Congress to do in terms of constitutionality, right, it's almost like an illegal impeachment, right, or an illegal pardon or it's in their sole discretion, the use of funds. There's nothing more core than that. And you're somehow suggesting that the president in the real scenario would be, I'm up to my own discretion unilaterally to decide this is going to waste and fraud. And you're saying that there could be a role for the president there. That's so dangerous.
No. Like I said, scenario B, if Congress says this is not waste and fraud, like we've reviewed everything, this is not waste and fraud, which if they were to determine this to not be waste and fraud, I would think that would be the much more likely scenario than scenario A, which is that they're like the comic book villains or whatever. In that scenario. Wait,
can we stay in the scenario?
You cut me off halfway, and then you missed my point, and then you have to re-ask the question like 2 minutes later.
Lactoid.
Right? This happens consistently. If in scenario B this happens, then I would agree. At that point, the president, because it's been identified specifically as by Congress very overtly, at that point, the president can't say, "Well, this is fraud and waste. This is fraud and efficiency waste."
But under scenario A, can he ignore the Impoundment Act?
Well, he wouldn't be ignoring the Impoundment Act at that point.
No, he would be, because the Impoundment Act, yes, it allows him to pause, but he has to. It's time limited, and it's pursuant to the procedures that Congress sets out, and those procedures culminated in a process in which the funds are purported to be released. I'm asking, can he violate the law and do an additional impoundment?
The Impoundment Act, like it's time limited in the sense that there's funding given to this agency, and that he has to spend this money or whatever, but he doesn't have to spend it on fraud and inefficiency, because the whole point of the Impoundment Act was to give the president the discretion in order to identify and remove fraud and inefficiency, right? Hold on.
So-
Wait,
so
wait,
does the
wait,
president have to?
Wait, don't make a
The whole
cogent point. Don't make
The
a
whole
cogent
point.
Careful.
Oh yeah, you're right. His point just happened to be in the middle of my sentence. Great.
Yeah, well, because
The
your
whole
sentence
point
is
of the
like
Impoundment
50
Act.
minutes
the whole-
long. Sorry.
Bro, really? You don't think Pisco's talked? Whatever. Okay. The whole point of the Impoundment Act here is to give the president discretion to identify fraud and waste and not fund it. That's the whole point of the statute. And so if Congress says like this is fraud and waste, you have Congress like contradicting themselves a little bit, I guess. But if Congress would have the authority, I guess, to allocate funding for U.S. aid in this hypothetical, but under their own statute, the president would still have the ability to freeze it because the president under the Impoundment Act,
days.
the impound
45 days.
Right, for funds, but specifically the freezing is to identify and remove fraud and waste.
Yeah, but only for 45 days.
Yeah, for the non-fraud and waste
Lactoid,
part.
can I
You're
ask
gonna
you?
identify the fraud and waste
Let's
during the
change.
40
I
And by
understand
the
what
way,
Pisco's trying to
the
get to.
45 days, as Zetsui said, that's not like in play anymore. It's until the end of the fiscal
Here's
year.
the deal.
Let me
hold on. Let me try. Lactoid. Okay. So Congress authorizes the president to use military force on a country. Say, hey, we're going to authorize you for a month to go into this country and deal with the terrorists that are there. There's a terrorist cell in this country that we really want to go after. We really want to get out. So we give you 30 days to go in and take them out. Congress authorizes that, gives them there. The president goes in with the forces. He goes for 30 days, but they don't get all the terrorists. Does he have to re-up to get more approval, or can he just stay there because, well, they told me to get the terrorists, and he could just ignore the time?
No, that's a tough hypo.
No, well, it's if Congress says like you're authorized to go into here
for 30 days.
Well, there is like a national security question at this point.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Okay, maybe.
So, but
I didn't mean to.
It's not as clear, right? There's overlap. It's a good
I'll still answer Wick's question, right? Let's assume there's no constitutional national security questions at play, which president, of course, as the founders intended to be a vigorous president, has the right to be able to vigorously protect the United States and enforce its laws.
Crazy.
But in this case, let's assume that this is not the case, and the president is a weak little boy and can't do anything besides unless Congress specifically authorizes him to do it. And then Congress says, okay, go in there for 1 month to get terrorists. You can go in there for 1 month to get terrorists. I think the way that's worded, it's very clearly you can go in there for 1 month to get terrorists. If, for example, if they said, go in there for 30 days to get terrorists and you can't leave no matter what until you get every single terrorist, then at that point,
that's different.
I don't fucking know. Because let's say 30 days has passed, but they've identified 14 terrorists that they haven't got yet. Now you have Congress contradicting itself, which is exactly the problem I had before. If we're talking about Congress admitting there's fraud and waste,
let's
and
go
then
on the national
affirming it,
security
like it's a bizarre kind of
That's
situation.
not what this is. So Wick, there's overlapping. It's a good question because it gets to a lot of these tensions where there's overlapping spheres of authority. Yes, Congress declares war, Congress funds, but the president also absolutely, as Lactoid says, I agree, there's a national security role for the commander in chief to have, independent of Congress, overlapping with Congress. Sometimes there's unclears, certain things. You can think of a law that Congress passed that unconstitutionally binds the commander in chief, or gives him an impossible command, or usurps the president's role as commander in chief. And so those are all very complicated questions. What's not complicated is funding. Funding is in the exclusive domain of Congress. That's an exclusive authority. If you guys are okay with this core executive theory for the president, this is core legislative authority. No one has this power but Congress. And Congress, in its infinite wisdom, said, okay, well, there are things that could come up in which the president, we want to give him flexibility. So Congress imposed its own law and for procedures, and it says, okay, you have to come to Congress first. You have to communicate to us first, and in certain circumstances, you can put a hold on funding for 45 days, and it's for specific things, right, like waste and fraud and things like that. But what we're talking about here, one, is the situation in which he is not complying with the Impoundment Act. He didn't, right? This wasn't a communique to Congress, like acknowledging Congress's role. He's sending a memo out to executive branches. So he's not following the Impoundment Act. And number two, by Lactoid's own admission, not all of the funding, federal financial assistance, is waste and fraud, and not even conceivably that it's a majority of it under the statutory definition. I don't think that he would bite that bullet. And so it's clear the Impoundment Act is not being followed. The time limitations on the Impoundment Act are not being followed. And so can we stop with this pretense that introduced by Zetsu that it's conceivable that the Impoundment Act is being followed? It's not. And Trump is specifically trying to attack it.
Would you follow the Impoundment Act? All of it? Would you be like if you were president, you'd follow it?
If
You
Trump
would
was
defy the
following
court. You
impoundment-
defy everything else subsequent to it. You
I
follow
would
the
not
Impoundment
defy.
Act.
No, I would not
Lying.
defy the Impoundment Act. I would not
No,
defy
yeah,
the
no.
Impoundment Act.
You'd follow it directly, right? Regardless of what happened afterwards.
If Trump were following the Impoundment Act, we wouldn't have a problem. I wouldn't be here
I
telling
would.
you that you would be saying that it's a constitutional crisis if he followed the law.
If he followed the Impoundment Act after the Supreme Court and the District Court and Congress have all said that
that's
Section
what I'm talking
1013
about.
isn't there.
To be clear, to be clear for my
Oh my
clarity,
God.
please, for my
The fact that
clarity.
Pisco said he was saying he would disobey Congress
a
and the
moment.
Supreme Court and the District Courts.
A moment,
I'm
please,
not-
because
that's
I have to
literally
ask
not what I said.
Pisco
He's
a
absolutely saying if
clarification.
he's saying he'd follow Section 1013 of the Impoundment Act, he's just saying New Haven doesn't count. He doesn't care.
Okay.
Wait, so,
I'm not
hold on.
familiar
If
with New
Cecil
Haven.
is
I
operating
just
under
am
the
not.
idea that the
saying you
Impoundment
don't
Act
care
is no
about that
longer
case or
law,
not?
then why are we even talking about whether or not he's following it? Like he said, it doesn't
Really?
matter. Like we could just move on from that, right?
No, you keep talking about the Impoundment Act, saying he's not following it.
Okay. Pause
The
for a
intent of
moment,
Congress in enacting
please.
Section 1013,
Okay, that's why.
District Court held
Please.
it-
I understand your argument, but I'm going to assume, for the sake of argument, because I'm just not familiar with New Haven. I'm not familiar with these things, right? I am somewhat familiar with the Impoundment Act. So just to ask Pisco directly. So your argument, as I understand it, is that he is not Trump is not following the Impoundment Act because
Correct.
he has not set the specific date which this freeze will end.
Multiple ways he's not following.
Okay,
it, right?
please specify.
Answer that particular
Yes.
question.
Yeah, I will. Yes, is the answer to that specific one as well. It's not limited to 45 days under the Impoundment Act. It needs to be 45 days. It is not. It was not sent to Congress initially. This freeze. It was not a communique or a presidential message to Congress. It was the OMB from the president, which is required. The OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, sent all hands email to the executive branch. So it's not an external. Executive to legislative, it's within the external branch. So he's not following that provision. He's going beyond the scope of the Impoundment Act, which is supposed to be for specified purposes and not just a wholesale pausing of all federal financial assistance as defined in the CFR. And so there are multiple ways. And the court, by the way, the two courts now that have struck down this memo, or sorry, should have put a TRO and an order pausing it, they have, in order to have that pause, you need to show a likelihood of success on the merits. And they have shown a likelihood of success on the merits. If it were the case, right, that Trump were following the Impoundment Act, and it were clear that he was following the Impoundment Act, and that these courts were convinced that he was following the Impoundment Act, they wouldn't have held that he's not following the Impoundment Act. They wouldn't have issued a TRO. If he were following the law, how could it, what basis would there be to issue a TRO? So the courts have found and have paused these memorandums specifically because it's illegal, specifically because it's not allowed both under Article 1 and the Impoundment Act. So this isn't a complete fantasy, and I believe that too. Now, I'm not familiar with the New Haven case, so I can't speak to it, but I bet you if I take 10 minutes now to get into it, he is misrepresenting the case. I've caught him on so much bullshit of him misrepresenting cases time and time again. He's not a good
You're saying
reader
New
of law.
Haven, no,
And so,
make that claim.
Wow.
Make the same.
Can
You're
I-
saying New
I-
Haven
I-
is not regarding Reagan and
absolutely
Section
will.
1013 of the
absolutely will.
Impoundment Act.
I absolutely will. But
And also, just
And while he's
they
doing
don't know
that, I
the
just want to
Impoundment Act
add
either.
supplementary,
Everything they're
like
discussing
the
it is wrong
Impoundment
as
Act
well. They didn't even
specifically
fucking
says
read
you
it.
have to specify the duration of the proposed partial year deferrals, which of course he didn't do, which is like already
And?
just
What does
on
that
the
mean?
first line. And what?
Therefore,
And
what?
therefore,
If he doesn't,
and therefore he's
transit
not
those things,
following it.
And who has the right to raise that? You?
The
Courts?
courts.
No.
The
Congress.
courts that he is
That
ignoring.
transmission is for Congress to make their decision. If they've received whatever the fuck they want and say, now we're okay with it, the idea that the courts are going to go, you know what, you didn't really write the right top head of the memo, so we're overriding Congress. No.
wait.
Transmission is for the benefit of Congress, for them to understand why you're deferring funds. If he
And they
doesn't
didn't do
do
that,
it
right?
properly, then Congress would have good cause to just say, fuck it off. Or that
Right,
you
and
can't
so
defer the funds.
in
But
your
it wouldn't
mind,
be for
it's
you
good faith to
challenge
use
it.
the magic words waste and fraud. And once I've said those words, I can deny all
I'm
funding.
dealing with people who don't understand any of it. Like
I guess maybe I don't understand, but I'm asking you whether or not
even
that is somehow
even the whole
justified if you
45 day
just say
thing.
the
Do you
word
guys
waste and
understand that there's a
fraud.
difference between Wait, do you guys understand? Even
A
within the
deferral and a
Impoundment Act,
recision.
those are different things, right? And that they are handled differently, even within the fucking Impoundment Act. Do you understand that?
So what is it your suggestion that this is not governed by the Impoundment Act?
Didn't say that either. No, you can't. I don't.
So what are you saying?
I'm wasting my time with people who can't even fucking read.
The 45-day thing has to do with rescissions, not deferrals. The deferrals is Section 1013, which is exactly what New Haven was about. That Reagan tried to delay funds. Then he said he relied specifically on that section to defer funds. Then the district court said, sorry, it's already been, the veto part of the one house veto thing has been shot down by Chad Haw, and they're inextricably linked. So the whole thing fucking falls. And then they subsequently say you can now do non-policy based. There's those two things. I linked it in the fucking group chat. I can link you something. I have a thing written by the guy who wrote the fucking Impoundment Act as to how pissed he was over Chad Haw in New Haven.
Yeah,
and the thing is, again, the 45-day thing is rescissions only. He hasn't rescinded anything. He's only tried to do it. Also, the policy isn't direct. They allocate funds to like homelessness, not to like Peace Corps' homeless fund. And so if there's fraud, it wouldn't be within homelessness. It would be within your actions. And he could stop that, but he would still have to allocate the funds to homelessness.
So do you think that there has been a permanent impoundment or rescission?
There's not been a rescission. It's currently in a deferral, basically, what you'd see it as.
How do you know
that he hasn't It'd be based on, so the reading of it, them saying like, hey, stop all funds and get to me something within 2 weeks. I think a reasonable interpretation of that is that basically they plan to basically stop for the purpose of reviewing those things. That would be my interpretation of it. And so the fact is, I don't believe.
Your interpretation of it?
I think if I'm being good faith, why would someone say, get me your, like, I'm freezing the funds, I want to review things, get me a report in 2 weeks? Why would they ask him for 2 weeks if they go, it's indefinite? Fuck it. Give it to me whenever, maybe years from now.
Yeah, maybe if they laid out this specific plan in this giant document and then elected all the people who wrote it into positions of power that said, like, hey, we're specifically trying to.
I agree with the unfreezing. I agree with the judge's order. They gave no rational basis for why they were even their rationale for doing the review doesn't justify the freeze.
Pisco, are you aware of the January 20th executive order?
Which one? There's a lot of January 20th.
Then like you got to be more
specifically reevaluating and realigning United States foreign aid.
I've read all the executive orders, but you have to be more specific.
Okay, specifically reevaluating and realigning United States foreign aid, Section 3. 90-day pause in United States foreign development assistance for assessment of programmatic efficiencies and consistency with United States foreign policy.
That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the freeze. The freeze is indefinite.
Hold on. Is the freeze? If we're looking here.
Hold on. Are you arguing that executive order is the freeze that they're doing?
Well, I don't know. I don't think the executive order is the specific freeze.
It's a 90-day freeze.
Also, a 90-day freeze is more than 45 days.
Again, 45 days isn't required anymore. If we're talking about a 90-day pause, we're talking about, it says, yeah, whatever. If we're talking about a 90-day pause on the executive order, that my understanding is the authority that they're using to stop programs like USAID. Why 90 days seems like a very specific number. I think like,
yeah, with this freeze.
But if the freeze comes from we're going to pause the United States foreign development assistant for assessments of programmatic efficiencies and consistency, 90 days. I'm saying, like, again,
where the freeze comes from.
We're looking. What I'm saying is that we have to look at things in good faith, okay? And the question is he operating within good faith? If he has an executive order saying we're going to freeze for 90 days to evaluate things, and then he also, within like the timeline here that we're talking about, freezes U.S. aid funding, then it would appear that the intention here is to freeze it for a temporary time period to evaluate its inefficiencies.
And when the inefficiency is declared to be the entire thing, get rid of it. Then what? Because again, we keep coming back to this magic word. If I say that fraud and inefficiency is all of it, then suddenly that's okay.
It's still good. It's only Section 1013 that Haven dealt with. Rescission and deferrals are different things. If he turns a deferral into a rescission, different rules apply.
I'm not even talking about an impoundment act.
Define rescission for me, Zatsu, right now, and versus deferral.
A bill or joint resolution which only rescinds in whole or in part budget authority proposed to be rescinded So basically, rescinding whole or in part budget authority proposed.
Yeah, just so I can.
Can you reread that?
Sure.
Reread it.
Please. I'm slow. I'm not a lawyer. Okay, you gotta be a little lenient with me.
Bill, but it basically goes anything where it rescinds in whole or in part budget authority that's been allocated.
Yeah, recision is the president saying.
Is that a definition of deferment, or is that a definition of rescission?
So no, rescinding means canceling. So if I say, let's say that you allocate $10 million to homelessness, and I say I want you to pull. I don't want to do that. I want to do $5 million. I'm asking you to rescind $5 million. if I say I'm going to defer, I have issues with some of the programs that were like, I think Pisco's homeless thing is not doing things I like, and I'd rather give it to Lactoid. So I'm going to defer my payments now. And next month I go, you know what? I don't like Pisco's. I'm giving it to his instead. I've deferred it because I still spent the money. A rescission means I'm not going to spend the money on the policy. If you read the budgets don't say, they say something like that, like $10 million to homelessness, $10 million to people who are doing ventures for the needy, especially women, which is a weird one. And then it gives a bunch of restrictions. They can't go to Iran. They can't help the Palestinian Authority. And so if the president does an analysis and finds out that like, oh, hey, we're helping out those in need, but it appears you're giving money to the PA, he can just cancel that without going to Congress because the bill says you can't give it to the PA. So if he wants to rescind,
can a deferral be indefinite?
Under the rules, so like you have to transmit that to Congress, so like it would be in violation of that part of it. We're saying like what you're supposed to transmit to Congress, it'd be missing that component.
Wait.
Congress would have good cause.
Can a deferral be indefinite?
Within the realm of reality, yes. Yeah,
No,
things can be
under the
indefinite. Under the law, it would be a violation of the transmit.
Legally, the question here, let me try. The question that Pisco's asking is legally, could Trump make an indefinite deferral?
Deferral.
Yeah.
Indefinite, again, colloquially, no, technically, no, indefinite, yeah, so colloquially, no, technically, yes.
Technically, he can just say
he can't. So technically, it'd be a violation. Colloquially, we don't mean infinite. We just means that, like, he said defer for 90 days, but he doesn't say when he'll get you to afterwards. So he doesn't tell us an exact date.
Here are the word games that's being played right here. Indefinite simply means we don't know when the end date's going to be. That's what indefinite means. It doesn't mean it will go on forever. What it means,
correct.
Like right now,
right now,
it means right now. Hold on. It means right now we don't know specifically when it will end. It could end tomorrow. It could end a week. No. It could end a week from now. That's what indefinite means.
You can reasonably interpret it.
Yes. Okay, we are focusing. I'll let you finish real quick, Lactoid. But I just want to make it clear: we have spent the entire time on the freeze, and there are a couple other things that people want to talk about, such as the IG firings and the 14th
Amendment. So where I'm reading, it says that deferrals are temporary delays, and that it doesn't seem like I will get the official language of the definition here, but I don't think that it's plausible that a deferral could be indefinite, where you're just talking about like something that could conceive it with no specific
indefinite, temporary.
Wait, no. If you did, no. Indefinite just
means indefinite can mean temporary, right?
Sure, but
yes,
it seems like
thank you. Jesus, it took forever to get there.
Wait. Indefinite could be temporary. It could also be permanent. Fair?
Correct.
It could, but he can't do it forever because that would be illegal.
No.
Okay, but why?
You would assess what he said. So
does it be illegal?
Zetsu just said that
go off of goes. Give me something in 2 weeks so I can review it and we'll take action then. The assumption is that you're going to do something in 2 weeks.
Not indicated 90 days on his executive order.
If he just says freeze it all, I'll figure it out later. That sounds more like that's not permanent.
In the freeze, they didn't say.
But on the executive order, he indicated we're going to be freezing this for 90 days.
It goes, I'm freezing.
Wait. No, we're stopping right now.
One at a time.
What are we talking about?
You need to stop. You need to stop with the executive order, right? He's purposely lying to the audience. The executive order only pertains. First of all, it's 90 days just for foreign aid, and it's not what we're talking about. So shut the fuck up.
There's the 14 days and the 90 days. Those are two different ones.
About the spending freeze. We're talking about
two different
ones. Stop trying to confuse the audience.
There's two.
I'm not. I'm separating.
So the argument here is that there are two different spending freezes going on, one through the memo and one through this executive order.
No.
We've been talking about
the one that's being ruled on is we've been going back and forth. The aid one for U.S. aid is 90 days. The one the court's dealing with has to do with grants, and that one is the 14-day one. Am I wrong?
No. The one the court. Yes, you are completely. Of course, you're wrong. You're completely wrong. You're always wrong. Yes, it deals with all federal financial assistance as defined in the OMB memo. Okay.
Which again, there's two of them.
Yeah, but if one is
what do you mean there's
everything,
the one that was sent, the 2-page memo that everyone's talking about, that we've been talking about this entire time.
You guys have been going back and forth, but okay.
No, the executive order was brought up like 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
The executive order was a new thing.
Now that we've established. Now that we've established that indefinite is temporary, or could be temporary, in this case, it is temporary. And by the way, if it's not, then it would be illegal. Then it would be a constitution. Then it'd be a constitutional crisis. If it turns out to not be temporary.
Yeah.
Then
So
sure,
as long as he gets it back at day 364,
Really?
you're
So
cool, and he can spend.
You think
all
I
the money.
can't show you two memos? I can send you both of you guys. I can send in the group chat right now.
We'll talk about like any of the other things that they're doing that is like fucking
so
insane.
so
I guess if we want to like move
here I
on
have
to
it.
this,
Wait.
Let
He's
Pisco
gonna
have
get
the
running
last.
away.
Hold on,
Oh,
Pisco have the
yeah,
last
sure,
word on this
I'm
subject. Then we'll get to the other ones. But go ahead, Pisco.
Sure. Here's the
So
14.
deferrals need to specify the time period which the budget authorities propose to be deferred.
Yep.
The letter to Congress,
and
Yes.
it needs to be sent to Congress. So by your own admission, right? So you agree, don't you? Don't you all both agree now? Because there needs to be a message under any of these, the use of the Impoundment Act. Don't you all agree?
Then Congress
the
would have
Impoundment Act, the Impoundment Act, as narrowed by judicial rulings, has been violated.
That's not a violation. No, that would be for Congress. If Congress has a problem with that, yes, they could. But
Wait,
you can't.
wait, stop. Wait, I just told you that there is a specific procedural requirement that the president transmit to the House of Representatives and the Senate a special message clarifying the period of time which the budget authorities propose to be deferred for deferrals, right? And
they didn't even do a special transmission. It transmitted nothing.
Yeah, there was never a transmission or message to Congress.
Correct.
So you would agree, wouldn't you? You would agree
that the judge should not care about that at all.
Wait. You would agree, wouldn't you, that the president is not following the Impoundment Act?
Yes, Congress. So that would be good cause for Congress to refuse it. The judge should not care about that at all.
Okay. We I don't have
if
all
the judge
night
took action on that, that'd be unbelievable.
I do want to talk about some of the other things. So when we talk about whether or not we're in a constitutional crisis, the freezing has been the focus, but I believe Soy Pill has a couple other pieces of evidence to enter into the discussion about why he thinks this is a constitutional crisis. And for the sake of my audience, right, maybe we can focus on those a little bit tonight. Soy Pill, you wanted to make the argument? Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to hear Lactoid or Zetsu's opinions on whether or not you can just use an executive order to subvert the 14th Amendment. I'd love to hear what they think about firing all the attorney generals or the investigative, the IGs, who, without the 30-day congressional pre-approval or notice, like all these other things that are consolidating power into the executive branch that apparently are just not being followed, and obviously being countered by courts and blocked by courts, and apparently based on the initial claim that at least Zetsu said at the beginning, as long as the court can even attempt to stop him, it's not a constitutional crisis, that he is trying to consolidate all this power. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on those.
Go ahead, Lactoid.
In terms of you're talking about the EO and the 14th Amendment regarding birthright?
Sure.
Yeah. I think that the legal theory that Trump is proposing, and me and Zetsu actually disagree on this. I think the legal theory that Trump is proposing is wrong. I think there is an argument to be made, but I personally don't find it convincing. I think that the original intent of the 14th Amendment was to provide birthright to all people born on U.S. soil that are under the jurisdiction, and this would include the children born to illegal immigrants, in my opinion. So
okay, sure. So,
but
that, like
Trump
him
is
trying to do an EO to subvert that. What do you think
Trump
about
is
that?
well within his rights to create an EO to get to I guess reject that as law, and then it gets blocked right away, which it has, and he hasn't tried to go around that block or anything along those lines. He hasn't been stripping citizenship away.
He hasn't tried to get around that.
No, he has not. He has not tried to strip people of their citizenship if they were born in the U.S. He has not.
Yeah, no, but he's literally trying to fight this so that he can get the 14th Amendment rewritten for himself.
Even if it was rewritten,
without making.
He's not directly violating a court order yet.
Oh, right. Oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
In Nazi Germany yet. It's not a.
He's challenging the idea of birthright. It's how you challenge. That's literally how you challenge an amendment. The courts aren't allowed to just wake up one day and just decide, oh, this is constitutional. That's not. There needs to be a case put in front of them. And Trump has made an EO on birthright. It's going to go through the courts. It's not active until the Supreme Court rules on it, and that's assuming they rule in its favor. I don't think they will. My opinion is that the courts are going to rule against the Trump administration on this, probably pretty overwhelmingly, I would assume. But we'll see on
So
that.
do you not consider it a testing of in a bad way, of the constitutional checks and balances that he's trying to use an EO instead of going through Congress, which, by the way, he has control over, to make an amendment to overturn the 14th or rewrite the 14th, but just say, hey, I'm declaring the 14th is not valid anymore. This is not like a test on a constitutional power that worries you in any sort of way. It's like, well, a court might reject this, or I think the court's going to reject this, so it's totally fine that he's pushing
any
this.
EO
It's
is
totally,
not challenging.
you know,
EOs by definition can't be aren't like areas where there can be room for constitutional crises, because you could always go to court. That seems to be what you're suggesting.
Well, hold on, but it's blocked. Yeah, it's blocked. And then, so like, for example, when Biden ordered OSHA to like mandate vaccines, that was blocked right away. I wouldn't call that a constitution. And by the way, the Supreme Court later ruled that
People
he
did.
overstepped. Yeah, hold on. The Supreme Court ordered that he or said that he overstepped his authority when he did that. But because that was blocked, that doesn't mean it was a constitutional crisis. Same thing with the student loan forgiveness.
So first of all, I think there's a couple distinctions here that matter. One is we're talking about a core provision of the Constitution relating to who's part of the club, the citizenship clause. And that is absolutely your right to be more worried about clauses that pertain to your
bodily
citizenship.
autonomy?
Wait. Constitutional provisions that relate to your citizenship, your membership, whether you're allowed to vote, right? Because only citizens are allowed to vote. Those obviously raise higher threshold concerns than statutes of Congress. And by the way, the argument made by Biden in the OSHA case is a lot better and a lot stronger, in my opinion, given the capacious language of the statute that we reference, compared to the fucking completely bad faith argument that illegal immigrants are not subject to the jurisdiction.
Oh, wait. It's not completely bad faith. Come on.
Insane.
I don't agree with it.
You don't think it's bad faith to call all illegal immigrants invaders or of a foreign army? That's not bad faith.
I don't. Hold on.
By the way,
I don't think it's done in bad faith. I personally disagree with it. I think he will lose at the Supreme Court.
What would it look like if it was bad faith? I'm going to ask you this every time, Lactoid, because you're in this like imaginary happy world where everyone's like super, super nice to each other. But like, what do you think it would be if it was bad faith? What would it look like?
What would it look like?
What would a bad faith argument like would he have to say I'm bad faith, or would he have to go against 140 years of Supreme Court precedent and use a lawyer who's made the same arguments to try to like birtherism Kamala Harris to propose that the 14th Amendment is no longer valid for children of illegal immigrants? What would be bad faith then?
I don't know. When it comes to an executive,
that seems to be the answer for everything. You don't fucking know.
Hold up. When it comes to the executive, you guys are antsy tonight. When it comes to the executive, like they can issue executive orders. This is well within their executive power. I'm assuming you guys don't want to like get rid of that here. They're well within in ordering, like, hey, we're ordering this, and then because we are not in a constitutional crisis, the courts are going to block it right away, which they did, and then it's going to be heard by the Supreme Court before we get an answer on this.
Wait.
Before we get he might be concerned. About what? It's still going to go to him.
Chief Justice Roberts comes out publicly with a public statement, which he's wont to do, and he says, I'm concerned. It's concerning to hear elected officials talking about ignoring court's orders. You think he's going to say that if he's not concerned?
Hold on. You're referencing back to the topic that I thought you guys wanted to like move on from. We're talking specifically about the 14th Amendment issue. And on the 14th Amendment birthright. On the 14th Amendment, do you agree that there is no evidence right now that the Trump administration has ignored the court blocking the removal of birthright citizenship?
I do not have evidence as I sit here that
he
Trump
only ignored other
violating that court order currently.
Great.
But you guys are talking about
great. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted.
Bad faith. Wait, Lactoid.
That's all I wanted. Bad faith. Wait. That's all I wanted. All I wanted to know was that the court said no, and they're not doing it until the case that they're going to argue.
Lactoid, it's only been 2 weeks. We can't know what's going to happen.
We can't. The Supreme Court could review. The Supreme Court could review and say birthright's actually not a thing because illegal immigrants aren't subject to jurisdiction of blah blah blah. Whatever argument that they make.
This judicial supremacy you guys are saying, as though courts could not be themselves a source of a constitutional crisis. For example, Dred Scott. You guys agree that Dred Scott?
Roe versus Wade.
Wait. Do you think Dred Scott? Wait. Do you think Dred Scott represented a constitutional crisis? That decision?
Yes, I think that Dred. I think when a court, I think every non-originalist is a threat to the Constitution. And if the non-originalists get big enough, then it becomes a crisis. I think Wickard versus Filburn was at that point when we start getting into that shit. Dred Scott, Wickard versus Filburn, Chaplinsky, that shit. Yes, that is a constitutional crisis. Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade was closer to a constitutional crisis
crisis
than anything Trump has done.
Really?
By
Okay.
far.
So
By
the
far.
the position is that Roe v. Wade is more of a constitutional crisis. By the way, we lived with Roe v. Wade for what, 50 years? You can
We were
disagree
in
with that
constitutional
position. You can
crisis
say
for a long
whatever.
time.
But you're saying that is a bigger threat. Yeah, a crisis. You have a different definition for what crisis means. That's different, and that's more of a crisis.
Maybe
than,
evidence
for
of
example,
a crisis.
Than, for example, the president,
Backpedaling.
by my
All right.
estimation, unlawfully and unconstitutionally impounding every single aspect of federal financial assistance, save for a few.
We disagree on that.
Lactoid,
Yeah.
is it because I'm guessing, do you disagree with substantive due process in general?
No, I agree. I disagree with a non-originalist Supreme Court pulling like laws out of their ass that have no basis in history, which is what they did with Roe versus Wade, which is what they did with Chaplinsky, where they said you can't call a cop a fascist because if you do and you get your ass kicked, well, that's on you because them's fighting words, right? That was another one of a really nice one from FDR's fascist court of goons.
You think Chaplinsky?
And then you also
it's dead letter. It's dead letter, and
it's
and
technically good law.
It's dead letter, and you're calling that a crisis. You're saying it's still a crisis because you guys are living in this delusional, formalistic world outside of the actual tangible experience of everyday people.
At the time of its ruling,
the life of people matters.
At the time of its ruling, I think Chaplinsky arguably could be a constitutional crisis. Now, it seems like we're out of that because the courts have continually narrowed it to the point where I somewhat agree with you. I think that nobody's really taking it seriously, even though it actually is essentially good law. But Wicker versus Filburn, I mean, the first time that the Supreme Court said, well, you really can't do that was Obamacare. Like literally for decades, like the federal government could just do whatever they want and say, well, Commerce Clause. All of that is way closer to a constitutional crisis. I don't know if it exactly is, okay, but it's way closer to a constitutional crisis than anything Trump has done. Absolutely, this is the case.
If you agree with it, it's not a constitutional crisis, and if you don't agree with it, it is a constitutional.
It's almost like we're on a panel giving our opinions. Holy shit!
No. What I mean to
say
the
difference is that Pisco and I might argue that things that we don't agree with are constitutional crisis, and you will stonewall and suck Trump's dick for 3 fucking hours because you have no fucking like morals, and you're gonna pretend like we're being hyperbolic. We're so fucking antsy, like they're not gonna revoke citizenship or at least try to and test this over and over and over for the next 4 years, as if that's not a big fucking deal. That's the difference.
Bad faith. Oh wait, Lactoid. It's bad faith to say that illegal immigrants are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. That's bad faith there.
I disagree with it. I don't think it's bad faith, no.
Well, and again, I ask you, what would be a bad faith then?
If I'm listening to somebody's argument and like they're going through, and it seems to me very clear that like they don't actually believe what they believe about the law.
Be specific. Give me an example. Not
well,
maybe if I didn't.
It's going to be on a case by case. Yeah, it's going to be a case by case basis.
We'll make up a case. Then.
Yeah, if I find like hidden information indicating that Trump actually doesn't believe this, and he doesn't believe there's like, I think this is the case, or it's like the lawyers themselves, and that's questionable as well because lawyers have a duty to represent their client. I think that at that point you could argue that it's potentially in bad faith. But again,
so if I find a secret diary of Trump that says, actually, I've been lying the whole time, that is the only thing that could be bad faith.
You're so mad.
That's what you just fucking said, dude.
You're so mad and verbose for somebody at the beginning of this.
Because you're being a stonewalling moron right now, and you're like, well, if someone is going against 150 years of Supreme Court precedent,
you don't know any expertise in this area.
If someone is going against 150 years,
you don't have any expertise in this area. You make YouTube videos ranting about social issues.
Yeah, and you know what? They're much more entertaining than you are, and you're fucking boring.
My legal
analysis. Okay.
Lawyer,
you don't know anything. All you are is talking head. All you are is talking head. You're only here
about what I'm
speaking of bad faith.
You want to add on me, all right?
You want to add on me?
Okay. You started it. You literally said I was sucking Trump's dick. You called me an idiot. You were literally started the ad homs. Oh, are you glass cannon? You could throw it insults all day. You could throw it insults all day.
I can take
a moment. I give like a little bit of like flame back.
Okay.
All of a sudden.
Okay.
Don't
we're done. We're good. We had our laugh. It was fun. Yeah. So
can I ask a good faith question? I really want.
Please. Go ahead.
Okay, so are you arguing that it is not bad faith to go against 150 years of Supreme Court precedents and say that illegal immigrants are foreign invaders? You think that is not bad faith? I just want you to say that, yes or no.
Well, does it have to be bad faith to be a conflict or a crisis or
Wick? I
just don't understand bad faith.
Are you Lactoid?
I said no.
Okay,
and by the way,
why not?
You have to agree with this, okay? Because there have been Supreme Court decisions that have rescinded long-standing precedent that I'm certain you would agree with. So, like Brown versus Board of Education. Brown versus Board of Education that overturned how many fucking years of precedent? Do you
I'll
think
walk into that one.
Brown
Okay.
versus
This is
Board of
different, bro.
Education?
This is
Whoa,
fucking
Pisco,
Just let him
don't
be
save
fair.
him, Pisco. He's a legal
wait.
expert all of a sudden. Don't save him.
I'm
He
not a
knows
legal
what's going
expert.
on. Go
I'm
ahead.
actually-
No, wait.
First of
You
all,
felt confident enough to
I
ask me
agree.
this
No,
fucking question.
I agree. Wait,
No,
hold on.
no,
Let me-
no,
I can
I'm gonna get my
I can
question
answer
now.
for you. I
I'm
can
gonna
answer
get my
your
question. No,
because you're asking,
again,
is it
for the
only overturning precedent that
for the
somehow
benefit
makes
of
it
the
bad faith?
audience, for the
No,
benefit of the
obviously that's
audience,
not what I'm
for the
fucking
benefit
saying.
of the
That is part
audience.
of it, but I'm
For
also
the benefit of the audience, I'm gonna finish my question.
Have been ruled on.
Yeah,
For the
finish
multiple
it,
whoa,
finish it.
stop,
Let him finish
stop,
it.
stop.
Okay,
For the benefit of the audience, I'm gonna finish my question, no matter how much you try to steamroll this. Okay. You said,
Okay, I'm back.
oh, like you're pointing to the precedent. Oh, you think that trying to overturn this amount of precedent, you can really do that in good faith, as you say very smugly, when there's plenty of fucking Supreme Court cases that overturn precedent
Right,
that you would agree with. So let me ask you.
Yep, okay.
Let him finish the question, or we're never going to finish. Lactoid, finish the question. Lactoid, finish the question.
You
Lactoid,
might
finish the
know
question.
where I'm going. They might not. Okay, you're not the center of the universe. There's other people. Okay, I don't know how to explain.
Just finish your question, Lactoid,
So,
please.
Brown versus Board of Education overturned a shit ton of precedent when it comes to the segregation of American society. Do you think Brown versus Board of Education, an argument in favor of that, was in bad faith?
Keep on. Okay, you're done? Okay. Do you think that I think only is bad faith if you're overturning precedent? Is that what you think I think?
That's what you said.
Do you think I think that?
Let him clarify. Let him clarify. He did say it. You did say it.
I did say that. I don't think that is. I don't think that is the only thing.
That was the argument you were making.
Admit it. I'll admit it. I'm a little bit
blown out.
It's a little bit
clarified
pontificating, but
Lactoid?
the precedent being that the precedent being in this case, not just if you go against precedent, somehow this is bad faith. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. Unless you really think I'm saying.
Why
that.
are you specifying the years then?
Be clear. Hold on.
well-
Soy pill, soy pill, soy pill. Be clear what you mean by bad faith. Go ahead.
Bad faith in the sense that for 150 years we have declared that illegal immigrants are not a foreign army. That is what I'm saying. If you're going against 150 years of that, or hey, let's say we decided that yesterday. It doesn't fucking matter. Obviously, do you think that you can somehow declare a bunch of illegal immigrants as a foreign army in good faith, regardless of how long that's been precedent?
Yes.
How?
A foreign army? No. I think there is an argument.
Foreign invader.
They're invaders?
I think they're legally speaking probably not an army. Okay, but I think you could. I think you could say you can make a good faith argument that
please
the 14th
make
Amendment
it.
was never. Yeah, the 14th. I'm in the middle of it. The 14th Amendment was never intended to apply to legal immigrants due to the idea of they're not under the jurisdiction of the United States, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's an argument there to be had. I disagree with it. Like, obviously,
why do you
You disagree with Brown v. Board, right? You disagree with Brown v. Board, is that right?
I disagree with some of the implications of Brown versus Board. Yes, some
you're
of it's
going
good.
after him,
Some
and
of it's
you're using
good.
This is bad faith, right? 'Cause
Well,
you're
no,
using
it's not
Brown
bad
versus
faith because I'm not the one married to years of precedent like he claimed.
True.
Like,
Hey,
oh,
can I
yeah,
give
take
my
that back,
opinion,
Pisco.
Lactoid?
Hey, wait. Take
Pisco,
that
go
back
ahead.
because I'm right. I'm not married to years of precedent.
That
You
was
know
a joke. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
thank
that
you.
was a joke.
Thank you. Go ahead.
That was a joke. But I don't want to be clear. I actually do think it's relevant, the amount of years of precedent. It's not dispositive, but if there's a great deal of precedent here, we have cases going back to the Chinese exclusion laws and cases as early I think in the 1990s, which say essentially this. There ought to be a really good argument, right? There ought to be a really good constitutional argument for you to be advocating to overturn it. There was a really good, in my opinion, not your opinion, constitutional argument to overturn Plessy v. Ferguson and Brown v. Board. I don't think that you can find that here, and I think that the length of precedent here is a factor to consider the good or bad faith. And I think that's totally fair. He's not a legal expert, and I don't think you should hammer him on that. It's not dispositive, but I do think it's relevant, and I'm glad that he brought it up.
Wait. I will hammer it. Let me respond. I will hammer him with it when he comes at me with ad homs, acting all confident.
Yeah, and then when I clarify, and what's your good faith? What's your good faith? What's your good faith interpretation of saying that illegals are involved?
Can I just because this is going to bother me. Hold on, stop, because this is going to be bothering me because I think this is tangential to the reason, like whether or not we are in a constitutional crisis or Trump is attempting to subvert the Constitution and the levers of power and things like that. He can be doing it in entirely good faith, and it could still be trying to dismantle the Constitution.
He can be wrong. Yes.
That's a good. That's a good point. I think there's some things that people could be doing in good faith that could still represent a constitutional crisis. Yes. But I think that bad faith adds to the scope of what we can look at in the current time. At time equals 1, right? Because what Lactoid is saying might sound reasonable at first blush to someone. Well, it's only been 8 days. It's just a pause. There've been other pauses in history, right? But what we're trying to do is tell you that it's a crisis right now. And in order to get into the crisis right now moment, we got to give you evidence of what they're planning in the future and whether or not they're coming at this in good or bad faith. And so while I agree, there are some constitutional crises that could have been reached in good faith by the respective branches of government. Not all. Some crises need to be proved both with current actions and with purpose and intent.
Intent.
So
And Wick, I need to add on to this. This is also
Please.
very important that, like, when we talk about Project 25, and it's like, oh, you're just being antsy, you're just fear mongering, hyperbole. When as if this wasn't the plan from the beginning that they're all saying that they're following, that is clearly like 70% of it's already been checked off, and specifically in this good faith discussion as to whether or not the 14th Amendment can be overturned or not apply to illegal immigrants, they literally have two contradicting bad faith arguments. One being that foreign invaders are illegal immigrants are foreign invaders, and the other being that it just doesn't apply to illegal citizens, which are like not like in the same thing. So they have to have these two contradictory things to try to push this, because it's not about whether or not I think they're foreign invaders. It's about I want to get rid of illegal birthright citizenship. That's all it is. And so that is the bad faith. It's all of the precedent before this. It's all of the plans. It's all of hey, I've been telling you what I've been doing and what I want to do for 40 years, and now I'm finally doing it. But actually, it's only been 3 days, and they haven't finished doing it, so we actually don't know if it's really happening.
And they want to blind us, and they want to say you can't look at that. You have to just consider the formalism of the argument itself, as opposed to the argument being bad, as you are acknowledging. In addition to the additional context given by Project 2025, contemporaneous statements made by Trump. I mean, Trump literally said we'll probably need to have an amendment for it. If that's not a fucking admission that the argument is weak, what is? I mean, he's literally saying the argument is weak enough that we might need to go to the states to have a constitutional amendment. I think that's pretty indicative of bad faith.
Let me respond to this. You can make arguments like you can make arguments for something that you believe is the law and recognize at the same time that those arguments are weak and that you probably won't win. I mean, you and I both know that, right? You can bring arguments to the court.
Is that an indication of bad faith, knowing your argument's not good and you just want to push your agenda?
No, not at all. In court, you can bring arguments that, like, especially if it's your only argument, that is particularly weak, and you have to put it forward to the court, and you can do that in good faith.
We're analyzing this not as attorneys. We're analyzing this as political actors.
No, we're analyzing this as attorneys, okay? Because that's the fucking law, whether or not you're bringing this in good faith, okay? You absolutely, when you're bringing a legal challenge in good faith, this I think well fits within that standard. And also, one thing that I think we've lost a little bit here, and Zetsui said at the very beginning, and this is like a commonly understood part of the definition of constitutional crisis in political science, at least, which is that a constitutional crisis requires that there be like some kind of inability to solve the problem within legal mechanisms. And in this case, when you have a judge immediately block it, no evidence of circumvention of the block, and this going up to the Supreme Court, you can't possibly call this a constitutional crisis, because the solution, the solution, like the solvement or whatever, is right there at the Supreme Court where it's going to go. Like, if this was a constitutional, like, how is this a crisis if we know where it's going next and it's going to the body that is tasked with interpreting the law?
Yeah, no, it is a crisis because the executive branch, first of all, even the attempt by itself, and the fact that they're able to marshal a great deal of support within the Congress and among their followers, shows that they're trying to do something that would generate a crisis, and they're actively attempting to evade judicial review. And I didn't hear you, Lactoid. I quoted that judge where the judge said, it's clear that you were trying to evade judicial review. Do you accept that? Do you accept that the memo rescission was in bad faith trying to evade judicial review?
No, I don't accept that the memo rescission was in bad faith to attempt to avoid judicial review. I've seen no evidence that the Trump campaign has been doing this. If they were doing this, you haven't read
their diary, so how would you know?
Surely they would be doing this about the 14th Amendment.
Bro, if Biden did this shit, if Biden did this kind of
this shit, look at OSHA. The student loan forgiveness. He tried to get around the Supreme Court how many times?
On day one, he did this.
Explain the comparison here, where what we're talking about is, just to be clear, the audience is aware, the rescission of this memo. We say we're rescinding just the memo, not the policy, and you guys say there's something other than judicial review that could be motivating what he's doing.
Other than, no, I would say that the reason why is because the entire thing it was retarded and creates chaos. It doesn't actually give any proper information for anyone.
So when the defense realized he was retarded?
Okay, I think, hold on, just housekeeping for a moment.
Creates confusion, and that's why things are getting frozen. That shouldn't be
housekeeping for a moment, because I think my Discord's freezing up. I'm not sure. Can you guys hear me? Is this on my end, or is this on?
Yeah, frozen.
I'm clear.
The only thing not frozen is Discord right now.
Your stream is freezing a bit, Wick. You're clear on our end though, so it's probably has to do with your streaming.
Discord's good.
Okay.
Discord is
OBS.
fine.
I do have to take a small break to make a little money here, if you wouldn't mind. I got to monetize the
let's
crisis.
do it.
So let me read some of these super chats.
Wait,
Thank
Trump's
you.
blocking it right now. Actually, he's
Wolfgang.
blocking the super chats. You can't
You've been
stop.
frozen.
No more super chats.
No!
Wick, we're done. This fraud and waste.
It's only been 1 minute. It's only been 1 minute.
Yeah, Wolfglen's given me 5 gift subs on Twitch. Thank you for that. I really appreciate you. $5 from Deej Nuts to say, how much will it cost to change the debate topic to is Pisco a hypocrite? More than $5. Thank you for the $5. $2 from Deej Nuts. Doge isn't freezing anything. Fair. Okay.
That's not
yeah, $2 from TL1524.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, maybe trying to say the president is actually freezing it. That's true.
And he's consulting them to do it, and he's just saying yes to it.
That's a good point. Wait, that's a good point. I shouldn't have discounted that too quickly.
Not a good point.
It's not a good point.
If you're going to say, well, everything is a function of the president's authority, and so nothing Doge does is anything. I mean, that's not true. Let's think about this like real.
We know what you mean when.
Yeah, he's agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah,
You're right.
We all agree.
No, I'm talking to the chatter, not you. Sorry.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Okay, $2 from TL1524. Can Destiny's Little Hobbit contain itself? Yes or no?
I'm not a I'm 6 foot.
I'm
I don't know
6
where
foot.
this-
You are Destiny's? Is that what
I'm
the
6'2".
You got to deny both of those things.
yeah.
You got to deny both
Listen,
of those.
I split ties with Steven, but they'll continue on, and that's fine. That's their right to do that, and it can tell when the arguments are weak. That's where they go, and so I'm fine with it.
And I was making
as
it clear.
as a
I didn't go
3'10"
there.
person, I don't think that Pisco's
Because
actually telling the truth about
because
his height.
I don't. In fact, I don't even think you should get shit because I mean that was a brave move.
Appreciate it.
Oh, okay. Well, we can kiss later. Fair enough. $2 from TL1524. Yeah, louder Pisco doesn't make you any smarter. Thank you for $2.
That's why you combined it with the right argument. Loud and smart
Yeah,
is
that's
double
right,
better.
that's right.
You know.
$2 more from Deej Nuts to say, my 8-month-old son laughs whenever Pisco speaks. Well, there you go.
Oh, that's cute.
That's wholesome, actually.
Babies love me. What can I say?
Yeah.
Wait, why are you letting your child listen to? Okay, 18 plus.
Listen to me.
Yeah,
He's gonna be a lawyer. Don't worry, Wick.
$5 from
Yeah.
Audacity. Pisco is being disingenuous, pretending like he doesn't know how challenges are raised and met by the court.
When did I do that? I acknowledge that there's court litigation going on right now. But that's not just because there's litigation. There's always gonna be litigation
I think
on
I
everything.
understand. I think it's because they're saying, well, because of the argument is if there is a challenge at all, therefore it is not a constitutional crisis because there's some challenge, and therefore if you think there's a crisis and also a challenge, you're somehow holding to contradictory opinions, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, whenever there's something bad, people are going to run to the courts. Just saying that there's a court challenge is literally brainless. And you're essentially saying no event can be a constitutional crisis because you could conceivably go to the court about it. I guess you could have, in the Civil War, you could have gone to the court to make it so that the secession is illegal. In fact, there have been arguments about nullification, that kind of stuff in the Supreme Court. So I
don't think what he's saying. Wait, can you reread that? What he said?
It's only a $5 super chat for sure.
Pisco doesn't know about
is
judicial
being
how you bring
disingenuous,
challenges?
pretending like he doesn't know how challenges are raised and met by the court.
Yeah, well, I think he's referring more to saying like the way that you challenge it. So if you wanted to challenge the 14th Amendment, the court, Trump would say, I think these two groups are outside of chat. So he's not saying like I'm defying and I want you to overrule it. He's saying I think ours are different. And the thing is, by passing that law, you're creating a challenge. That's how you would go. Now the court goes, no, it isn't. You're trying to distinguish it.
But
That's
it's
how you
not
raise
just
these
positive
challenges.
justice. So Zetsu, if I were the president, I went to court and I was like, it's my position that Dred Scott is still good law and black people are not citizens and cannot be citizens. Do you think that
No, but that's not what he did.
This is an extreme example. No, I know.
No, that
it's
wouldn't.
an example. You would say that this is bad faith, anti-constitutional, and it's a crisis to the extent that we are fearful of what it portends for the future. And I think that that's completely true, or at least, at the very least, if it's not a crisis because you trust the court.
Wait, would he say that? I don't think he
if
would
they
say that,
direct-
right? If
well,
the court,
I don't know if I go that
wouldn't say it'd be a
hyperbolic, but
crisis. No.
yeah, I just say that
would
but the
it
level
be bad faith? Would you agree it's bad faith at the very
yes,
minimum?
because
okay.
that's not even bad faith.
Depends who was elected, right? Like
You're
Nick
saying
Fuentes
that
was
I'm just going to
elected, it could be
defy the
basis.
court because I think it's
Fuck
bad.
Wait,
Is it your position that it would not be bad faith to say that Dred Scott is still good law to go to the court and raise that? Oh my god!
I think that's
Wait.
bad faith.
Let me
No,
respond.
bad-
Let me respond.
Go ahead.
Okay, you can't just let that hang, please.
You let it
Um,
hang.
No, I didn't. I was like gonna answer.
You did let it hang.
I was gonna
You
answer.
had to
I was
think
gonna
about it a little
answer.
too
Well,
long. buddy,
answer
but go ahead.
answer it because I got more super chats. I wanna get to
trying.
them.
I'm
Yeah.
trying.
Sorry about that.
Okay, you're all good, brother. You're all good. So I guess it depends. Like if we're talking about good faith from the actor themselves, like if Nick Fuentes was elected president, does he actually believe this? Could he like credibly bring this if someone's like delusional enough? Yeah, you could have like a good faith there. I think any lawyer trying to bring the argument that black people aren't people, like I would be 99.999% sure that they're acting in bad faith or they have some kind of psychosis, right? There could be
Wait,
one
what
or
do
the
you mean?
other.
If Nick Fuentes
Um,
believes
yeah,
it and
if
he
Nick
gets a
Fuentes did
law
it-
degree and then introduces it, now it's good faith, right? So it's okay.
Well, no.
and
If
this
he gets a
isn't
law degree,
constitutional
then he would
crisis.
know. Then by going through law school, he would know that's like a not a good
You
legal.
think that we can de-radicalize
He
Nick Fuentes
knows.
by putting him through law school?
No. Wait. I'm not saying that we can de-radicalize Nick Fuentes by putting him through law school. What I'm saying
You just
is
said
that
if he went through law school, he would now not think that black people
What
are
I'm
people.
saying
Good faith
is
would be
that
aware of the precedent.
yes, thank you. What I'm
Yeah,
saying is
but
that
Fuentes is
you can
aware of
only
the
bring.
precedent right now.
I don't know if he is. I don't know.
Hey,
I, look,
fun
I
fact.
don't know
Know
Nick.
about the history.
Fun
of
fact.
the
I
Civil War.
don't know Nick Fuentes' legal background. Okay, I don't.
He threatened
What
to
I'm saying-
firebomb my or pipe bomb my house once.
That's
we were on a
fucked.
show,
That's fucked.
and he
Yeah,
said he was
that's
going to send a pipe
horribly
bomb to
fucked
my
up.
house. So it was fun.
That's
Okay.
horribly fucked up. Wait, can I please? So
Wait, easy
I
super
don't
chat.
know the legal background of Nick Fuentes. What I'm saying is that if you go through law school, if you have any kind of knowledge in like the legal history of the United States, I don't think you can, in good faith, make the argument that
Okay.
like black people aren't people. Okay, now.
But you can make the
citizens.
good faith argument that illegal immigrants are
the
a foreign
14th Amendment
invader.
doesn't apply. Yes, you can make that our good faith argument. I
You
think so.
do a
Okay.
distinction. They're not.
And
saying
by the
countering
way,
it.
even if somebody makes a bad faith argument about like black people not being people, if the Supreme Court orders like a hold, like the courts order a hold on it and then review it and then decide against it, no constitutional crisis has happened because the Supreme
So
Court functioned
if the
exactly as it
president is
should.
trying to like subvert the Constitution and take away citizenship from black people just because someone stopped him, it's not a crisis. That's just the standard.
The part of the definition of the crisis is that there's no way of solving it. And the
Threat.
Supreme Court,
No.
quite literally, their ability is to solve it. Now, if there's not enough time for the Supreme Court to solve it, let's say a situation like the Civil War, I don't know, where they probably I don't know if they directly defied a Supreme Court order there, but there certainly wasn't enough time to have the Supreme Court rule on that. But if like they all started like grabbing guns and like right away, then yeah, you can say that like that's a constitutional crisis because the court hasn't had enough time. But if the court freezes the order so there is enough time for the Supreme Court to hear it, then no, there's no crisis because there is a specific constitutional process for dealing with disagreements, and that's what's happening.
We got
the super chats.
Yeah, we got a lot of super chats to go, and we can't like let's save the big arguments for the $50 super chats, and let's keep the $5 super chats to
Okay.
maybe a comment or two.
Sorry about that, Wick.
No, it's
What if
all
it's
good.
a bad $50 super chat?
$5 from Audacity. Ask Pisco if he believes in presidential veto power.
Yes, I do.
There. That's
Well,
all it needed, right? We don't
bullet
need more.
bitten.
Okay, $5 from Audacity.
What was that?
Pisco again being disingenuous. If Congress disagrees, they have to provide sufficient reasoning and vote again on releasing those funds.
Fuck no.
No, they don't.
That's the change. in
Even under
operation.
impoundment, they don't.
$5 from
There you go.
Audacity. If they fail to provide sufficient reasoning and the president holds it again, the challenge will be brought to court.
That's not
No.
right.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it works. But thanks for the $5, Audacity. I have approved release of all your funds to my bank account. Okay, $2 from non-fun. Worse than being bad faith, Lactoid is Canadian. True. $5.
Not Canadian. It's a lie.
You're not.
$5
No way.
It's a
from
Right?
weird
Faith.
ongoing meme.
Wait,
I'm not.
can we do a lactoid birtherism? Wait, why do they think you're Canadian?
It annoys him.
because
and
I'm
they keep saying it.
Believe it or not, I'm actually very nice on panels. Most
Say-
people throw shade at me first.
Say about.
Whoa. You threw the first stone at me going personal.
No, your
Yeah,
intro.
100%.
In your intro, you were talking shit.
I'm saying these
That's
guys are going to
why.
defend it.
I don't think he did.
Yeah, we can go back.
I think
he said
definitely-
these
I remember. I
cocksuckers
remember
would defend
changing
it.
my intro because of your intro. So
I throw
we're
the
going
first
nuts.
stone against Lactoid. I'll take that. I'll take that L.
$5
but
from-
Wait, Lactoid needs to say the word about. Say about.
About.
Okay. I don't
Okay.
think he's Canadian, guys.
Fuck.
He tried.
$5 from Fates to the Shadow Realm with all of them. I was tempted. $2 from Solomon Argus. Conservatives equals good. Progressives equal bad.
Whoa.
Thank you for the $2.
True.
$2 from Old School.
Great.
Your panelists are trying to give you an aneurysm. True. $5 from Ben Riley. If you really want to know how Lactoid feels about precedent, ask him about if he thinks the Civil Rights Act was a good idea.
I think Article 2 is
That's not
unconstitutional.
about precedent.
Yeah.
And
Do
then
you think it's
I think
unconstitutional?
I think it violates freedom of the specific, like the one mandating private association I think that violates the First Amendment's freedom of association.
So Title VII is a constitutional crisis.
Wait.
It's
Personally, it doesn't-
unconstitutional. Is there a way to solve it?
So it's a
I don't
constitutional
know.
crisis.
It could be, yeah. It could
If
be
there's
an
a way to
unconstitutional
solve
crisis.
it and it doesn't get solved, is it not a constitutional
Title
crisis?
Title VII, for you guys know, is like employment discrimination law. Lactoid says that that's more of a constitutional crisis than the president trying to usurp legislative authority.
Or Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
There are exceptions from personal. Never. All right, it's not working.
Okay.
First Amendment matters, Pisco. Okay, freedom of association matters.
$2
I know, but
from another new account. If Biden did this, quote unquote, he did. Thank you for the $2. Okay.
When you guys have not provided OSHA stuff
So
is
we had
totally
to switch
He
over.
tried
It wasn't
to talk
OSHA.
about the deferment at the beginning, right? About the wall, isn't that right? Is that Sui?
the
Yeah, he
deferment of
it's
the
a-
wall funds.
Yeah. So no, it's not. Do you want to keep doing super chats? We can do it after, or do you want?
No,
Oh,
that's
wait,
it
let's
for
address-
super chats,
this is a
so-
specific
You mean the
question.
deferment of the
More.
funds that were initially reappropriated from the Defense Department?
So Congress allocated them. The reason why he even deferred them was to say that there was a bunch of surveys and stuff that were waived. That he goes, you know what? I'm not going to waive them. I want to do them. And then on top of that, he said he wanted to do consulting things. And so the question is, I still think that within his rights. So I don't think it's a crisis. or
Yeah, if
he's
he's,
doing horrible.
if he's allowed to
But
waive.
I do think it's obvious that he was doing it just to delay the wall. The idea that goes on day one, he just had a thought that occurred to him. But again, I think it's within his power. Like he made the argument, and I think that it'd be hard to like challenge it in court. So
Do you
yeah,
know
he
how many
needs to get
days he
away with
deferred
it.
it? Do you know how many days he deferred it?
I have no idea. I think it went for a while, but I didn't check how long it went.
No, but if he has the substantive ability to waive permits and stuff like that Congress envisioned
already
for,
did it.
that's completely that's
No.
completely different.
Congress
No,
waived
but
them
no, they were
already.
already
He
waived.
unwaived
Oh.
them. He
Well,
said,
then
I want to unwaive all of them to do all the surveys.
Against
Also, I wanna do
Congress as
community
well.
stuff.
I'll have to look at the
And stop
I'll have
spending
to
the
look
money,
at the
but-
facts. I'll have to look at the facts of that alleged deferment. But just to be clear, it's not enough, in my opinion, for something to be an unconstitutional illegal deferment for it to be a constitutional crisis. What we talked
Yeah.
about at the beginning, it has to be existential, affecting the structure of the Constitution. And so you can point to other deferments, maybe that are even illegal. Maybe I'll even agree with you. But I'm not going to say that just because there is one that it's a constitutional crisis.
Yeah,
I agree. I
So-
agree with that. I agree with that. So let me just kind of ask one question, like on that specific point. If the president has the ability to do something, but there's also like a requirement, hey, I got to let you know exactly what I'm doing, and he does the thing that he otherwise could do, but let's say he just skips the part where he lets him know what he's doing. Would you say that rises to the level of a constitutional crisis?
If he's allowed to do what he's going to do and he just fails to follow through with notice, depending on his state of mind, I would say if I think good faith in him, then I would say, and like generally not trying to centralize authority, I'd be like, no, it's not a constitutional crisis. But here, the violations of notice provisions, the violations of time dates, those are all deliberate. He's trying to say that any intrusion by the legislative branch into executive affairs is de facto unconstitutional. And so he's violated them, just like the IGs, when he fired all the IGs, just like when he fired the NLRB nominees, members, when he fired people on the EEOC commission. So, and they're not going through with the notice and substantive requirement checks and all those kinds of notices to Congress provisions. It's not done just because they forgot. It's done because there's a substantive challenge to Congress's authority to put any limit on what the president is allowed to do. That's what is happening.
See, and the reason I disagree with that is I think that it would be so easy for them just to do that if they even if they intended on this whole project, because this is getting challenged by legal groups anyway, right? This is going to go to the Supreme Court, even if we roll with the assumption that this is to challenge whether or not the president has the unilateral right to impound funds, like regardless of the Impoundment Act of the 70s. Then he could be doing that regardless, right? The idea that he could do this power, he could do it, he just needs to let Congress know, hey, I'm doing it.
He didn't
And
use
the idea that him failing to let Congress know.
Of your question, Lactoid, that was an assumption of your question. I do not accept that the kind of broad scale pause here is necessarily in line with the Impoundment Act, and I think you can think about that in the same kind of major questions doctrine that was applied to the student loan things that Biden did. What they said was, yeah, you can do this kind of targeted relief. They didn't actually say that, but that's been approved over time. These kinds of targeted relief. But they're saying if Congress wanted broad sweeping power to be handed to the president to forgive student loans in this broad way that affects everything, they would have more clearly stated.
I'm not saying that you said this. I'm not saying that you said this. I'm putting forward my position, which my position is, I think that a president who does something, and they could do it, but the only thing that they missed out on doing was telling Congress, hey, I'm going to do this. but they otherwise could do
Okay,
it
that's your
perfectly fine.
position.
Okay.
I don't think this rises
Yeah.
to the
Let me. I do have.
constitutional
Hold on.
He has so many super chats.
Yeah. Not super chats, but I do want to keep everyone's time in mind. I want to respect your time, and I have one more question before we get to closings and things that I do want to discuss. And this is to Lactoid and Zetsuy's side first. Regardless or not, whether you think that this is currently a crisis, right? That we are currently in it. Do you not think that it is reasonable for citizens who are watching this go down, watching some of this, some would call unprecedented behavior by people like Elon Musk, by people like President Trump, and have concerns that we are entering into one in the future? Like you mentioned that at the beginning, Lactoid specifically, you mentioned that Pisco was being hyperbolic and alarmist in his language. Do you not think that some of these different executive orders, firings, challenges, memos, freezings are at least not cause for some alarm?
No, hold on. This was specifically to Pisco because of his intro. If you have somebody come in and say, "Yeah, I mean, overall, it's there's some concerns I have. Here's where he's right. Here's where I think he might be making mistakes. I'm interested to see how this develops." Like if that was the position coming in, obviously, I think this position is reasonable. I think this position is reasonable for any kind of president or politician trying to enact shit. Because like whenever this shit's going through, am I concerned personally? I mean, I think the question was, is somebody reasonable to be concerned?
I guess that's true, but I'm asking, I guess.
Well,
Sure.
no,
I
the
mean, I
question
can-
are, do you not have concerns?
Do I not have concerns? I mean, I think that what they're trying to do, first of all, I agree with what they're trying to do, just to be clear, because government is bloated, government is a problem. So in that sense, I'm not concerned. I'm not really concerned as to, I guess, the peripherals of what's going on in terms of the any kind of threat to the Supreme Court or the separation of powers, because I think that historically, at least within my lifetime, the Supreme Court or the Republican Party, and specifically Donald Trump, has selected justices that have a functioning theory of law. That there's a respect for the Supreme Court. There's a respect for the balance of powers that exists within our government. So I'm not concerned that this is going to turn into some kind of major crisis. I can't rule it out. There's always the potential for. Is there any? I always have some concerns whenever the government does anything.
Do you think
But
Elon
beyond,
Musk
but I'm assuming.
respects
But
these-
I know you're not going to like that answer. So that's why I'm assuming you're asking. Do I have concerns beyond the normal government skepticism that I
allegations
have?
of authoritarian overreach and centralization of authority, are those at all concerning to you?
No, I don't, because Doge has a specified expiration date. What they're trying to do is specifically reduce the size of government, to reduce waste. They're posting the evidence. They're posting what they're doing. There's oversight by Congress. There's oversight by the president. They are, in my mind, the intention to me seems very clear that they're attempting to shrink the bloat and waste that exists within the United States government. So no, I don't have that many concerns. Now, is there always in the back of my mind, well, maybe this is like a ploy? This is always the case. Okay. But beyond that, no, I have more faith in Donald Trump than Biden. Okay. And I have more faith in Biden and Donald Trump than George W. Bush. No doubt.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we can go to closing.
Yeah.
Okay, I was an answer, but
No, that's why.
Oh, sorry, that's you. I'm so
I was like,
sorry.
yeah, no. So
Wow.
it's okay. No, I think if you're a Democrat, I think there should be massive concerns right now in terms of execution. That's saying that I think the freeze is I agree with the judge where it goes, there's no rational basis for why you had to freeze. Everything you're suggesting you want to do, freeze has nothing to do with that. And so, especially if you're a Democrat and you don't trust Trump, which I assume you don't, then you should, and I actually don't mind the hyperbolic language either. I think what Democrats need to do is you need to basically call out everything and kind of make it fiery enough, because the only way you win is by galvanizing your base. And so if you're just you know what, I have some concerns with how he's doing and I really don't like it, even that's not going to get anyone to go out to vote. So in terms of execution, I think that Democrats in particular should be very concerned, because I suspect even if they go, oh, we're cutting policies that are inefficient, my guess is you're not going to like those things that he's cutting, or you're going to disagree with even the effect of it. It's like saying there might be a good policy, but if you try and have a 5-year-old implement it, it's not going to work. And so, but in terms of the idea of saying, do we want to review reportings of different agencies and all those things? I think those things are good to do, and I'd be interested to read them. But if you don't trust anyone currently in government, you're not going to like their review. So in that sense, you should be very concerned.
Okay. With that, it has been a very robust discussion, very fiery discussion. I've enjoyed it. Gang, if you've enjoyed the show, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're following me on YouTube. If you're on Twitch or you're on Kick, hit the follow button. Really helps. Feel free to send me super chats, subs, all that. But I want to give each of these individuals a chance to have some closing thoughts and tell people where they can be found. So if you've liked what they said or doesn't like what they say, you can follow them at their various respective things. I have links to their socials in the YouTube description, so check that out. But we're just going to go in kind of the reverse order we did last time, and we'll give Pisco the last word. Lactoid, start us off, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, some of you may know before this election, I hesitantly endorsed Donald Trump, and this was because of my analysis of his history and kind of what was at stake at the 2024 election. Right before his inauguration, there was a couple things that made me super concerned. I really didn't like the Trump coin. I thought that was really shitty, and there's a couple other things that he did really upsetting. But since he's come into office, I think that he's been, in some ways, not good, right? And I've already called those out. The Gaza idea is bad, to put it mildly. It's a very bad idea. God, I hope that's just some weird negotiating tactic because Jesus Christ, okay? But then on the other hand, there's been a lot of things that they've been doing that I am incredibly satisfied with. And he's doing more that I'm satisfied with than I anticipated. We got great cabinet picks coming through. I'm looking forward to what comes next. I think here, sure, we'll wait and see. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe after 90 days, Trump is going to look in the camera and say, "I am your God now." If that happens, fuck. Like I will. If that happens, I will go to you, Pisco. I will apologize for my ignorance and my lack of foresight. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a bunch of cuts. You're going to see some kind of compromise, and then you're going to see back to business as usual, but just a little bit better. If you like what I had to say today, you can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. One last thing. I know things got heated. Yeah, I don't hold anything against you guys. No grudges. I'm not a big grudge guy. You guys might hold grudges against me. I don't know, but I'm not holding grudges against you guys. So everything is refreshed. Going forward, I won't be mean unless you guys are mean to me again. So go ahead.
Okay. Thanks for being here. Check them out, gang. Soy Pill. Go what you got.
I didn't get to talk as much, and like we all pointed out, I'm not as experienced, and that's fine. I did shout, but you know what? It's all in good fun. No hard feelings. I agree. What's happening right now? Power is being consolidated in the executive branch, and this is very much planned out and explicitly stated by the people in power right now. J.D. Vance has said, we want to defy court orders. You can look in Project 2025 and the people that they are appointing who are architects of Project 2025 and putting into power and what they say things like the president should, quote, this is from Project 25, page 28, the president should choose a White House counsel who is well-versed in the Constitution, administrative and regulatory law, and the inner workings of Congress and the political process. Instead of choosing a specialist, the president should hire a counsel with extensive experience with a wide range of complex legal subjects, but moreover, while a candidate with elite credentials might seem ideal, the best one will be above all loyal to the president. And then at the end of that sentence, and the Constitution. And there's a reason they put loyal to the president first. It's because they don't give a shit about the Constitution. They care about Trump being able to enact his agenda and putting those people in power. Lactoid thinks that Roe v. Wade and the civil rights are more likely a crisis. I think that speaks for itself, and you can all make your decisions based on that. He thinks that the word waste and fraud are these magical words where as soon as you say them, suddenly it's okay to cut whatever the fuck you want. It's not deleting anymore because the whole department is a waste. And I guess if we're in some crazy world where, like, if a robber breaks into your house, waves his gun around, and threatens to murder you, as long as he hasn't riddled you with 29 9mm bullets, it's not a crisis because maybe the police are going to come in and stop you. So that exists. So maybe it's not a crisis now. I think that the bad faith is not somehow contingent on the fact that only if Trump wrote it in his little secret note diary that somehow we can know his true intention that it's bad faith. I think you can look at the arguments being made made. They're contradictory. They go against precedent. They are ridiculous. They are bad faith. I'm someone who's not an alarmist. I don't think that the first administration was as bad as a lot of the resist libs were saying. I did not have the Donald syndrome or TDS as many of the people around me in the Bay Area did. And you know what? It turns out they were all right. They just needed a second try. I think what's happening now is insane. If you look at what's happening in the past 2 weeks, it is insane. And don't listen to me. Don't listen to Lactoid. Don't listen to anyone on this panel. Listen to the judges, the representatives, and the people that are raising the alarms and saying, this is unprecedented. This is fucking scary. This is consolidating power in a completely unjust, insane way that we've never seen before. And this might not come back where he can give this power back. So please, for the love of God, be scared right now. It is not good.
Okay. Thank you for being here. You can find his channel in the YouTube description. Click on that link and you can see what he has to say. Setsway.
Yeah, I guess start off with I guess I probably should apologize that I didn't I genuinely wasn't mentioning some of those cases. I had assumed I probably should have posted them in the group chat that I was even looking at them. I wasn't, and I realized especially after Pisco kind of snapped at me, it was like, you can't just accept my interpretation of it. If you haven't read it, you have there's no reason for you to accept that. So and same thing with the bills, that if I'm trying to provide them to you, but if I can't just ask you to accept if you're not certain. And so that was kind of rude of me. But overall, I'd say that a lot of these things that people are saying consolidating power or that are unprecedented, we do have a lot of legislative history on a lot of things. A lot of things have gone severely wrong in this country that don't really constitute constitutional crises. And I don't think this one's necessarily any worse than other situations we've been in, or ones that we wouldn't consider that. Like I said, say Nixon's was far more severe than this. But overall, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be losing your shit. Especially if you're a Democrat, you should not be letting up on Trump at all. That especially good in terms of the things that are insane. I'd be saying the things like the Greenland, the Panama Canal, the tariffs. These things they're not constitutional crises, but those things, I'm like, how are you not? I'm like, that's scaring the shit out of me. And it's like, but then when it comes down to this, and I'm reading the bills and I'm reading how grants are given and how they're rescinded, I'm going, okay, procedurally, it doesn't appear like this is a big issue. And that's kind of where I was coming from. So it doesn't mean that I don't think that I'm not trying to get anyone to tone the heat down. It's more of just saying, I feel like there's sharper knives to wield, and I feel like you guys are wielding dull ones. I'd rather you pull out the sharper ones, I guess. But yeah, I don't have a channel or anything. I'm not a content creator, so.
Wick exclusive. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you. Yeah, thanks. And last but certainly not least, Pisco. Close us out.
Yeah, that dude really kind of threw me at the end there. I had a whole thing sort of stewing in my head, and he said that the Watergate situation and the Saturday Night Massacre and what happened with Nixon is way worse of a constitutional crisis. I don't even know, based on the immunity decision of the Supreme Court, how Nixon isn't completely vindicated and everything he did was completely correct and not a problem at all. He was being accused of obstructing justice by firing a bunch of prosecutors, which apparently he has the complete authority to do, regardless of whether his intent is to obstruct a particular criminal investigation. And so I don't know how, based on the logic of complete deferring of the courts, that you can even say that Nixon did anything completely wrong. Perhaps you agree, as I do, that the centralization of executive authority under Nixon was incredibly alarming. What you had there was the president immunizing himself from criminal review and immunizing himself from being checked on within his branch and external to his branch by claiming, for example, that he had a privilege over certain documents and tapes and things, and that he had, when the president does it, it is legal. But that's the kind of tenor that I've been hearing from a lot of, or I've been feeling certainly from a lot of what's going on here. Let's just stick to the facts of what's going on here. Both Zetsu, I believe, I think, no, this is confirmed. Zetsu and Lactoid both said that the Impoundment Act is being violated. Both of them acknowledge that certain types of indefinite, however you want to define indefinite, I would say with no permanent end date. That's how I always meant it. I never meant it as anything other than that. That would be unconstitutional or unlawful. Arbitrarily, we can talk about the specific continuum word exactly it's unconstitutional. And you can do that with any constitutional principle. It's completely fatuous to bring that up and be like, oh, because you can't say the precise date, but you know that it's the full fiscal year. But we know that he's not being complied with. And if anything is an usurpation of federal legislative authority, this must be. It cannot be the case that what was envisioned by the framers was that the president could just, take an entire year, not listen to Congress at all, not, execute any of their funding decisions, take a day off where they say, okay, now we're releasing this, and then pause it again. That cannot be the system that we're going through. But let's take a step even further back and examine it as the Soy Pill did, in I think a really nice way, of what's actually happening here. What is going on here? They're telegraphing that they do not want a single check on executive power. That's why they're firing the inspector generals. They're not complying with these procedures for a reason, because they want to put a thumb in the eye of Congress and in the courts. And they have this kind of about face about, Trump's recent decisions to try to evade judicial review, the rescinding of the memo. None of them are convincing. That he was just, the memo was so disruptive, but the policy itself wasn't. The memo is the policy. They said that the policy hasn't changed. They just rescinded the memo. And you're not going to accept this judge who's like very clearly on the record stating something, but you're willing to defer to the courts in other instances. And so there's a complete inconsistency here. And what's the point of all this? The point of all this is authoritarian government. That is what they want to do, because those are his tendencies. He's flatly saying it, that you're not going to defy this administration. Listen to their words. Dictator on day one in the start of the campaign, and listen to the authors of Project 2025, who are absolutely influencing this administration from day one. The executive orders mapped on from Project 2025, the personnel from Project 2025. And for us to have to sit here and listen and pretend that there is no connection between Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation, and this administration is completely preposterous. The notion that the Civil Rights Act and Title VII, I'm finishing up, are more constitutional threats than this centralization of authority is laughable. And so, you have eyes, you have ears. This is concerning. You should be alarmed. You should be incredibly alarmed. And you should be watching the administration like a hawk to see what they're going to do next, because it's going to be fucked up.
Okay. Gang, you can follow him at the links in my YouTube description. Is there anything else you want to shout out other than your Twitch channel?
Oh, Pisco on Twitch and Pisco's Hour on YouTube now.
Pisco's Hour on YouTube. Gang, check that out. I'll probably add that to the description later. Send me a link to that, please, so I can get the thing right. I'll let you go in a second, gang, but I want to have a say a little bit, so just bear with me, okay?
You can't help himself.
I know. So, please, ladies and gentlemen, right? We can look to see what Trump has said and what Trump is doing. Whether we call it a crisis or not doesn't matter to me. But what Trump wants to do is he wants to assert more power than the Constitution, I feel, gives him. He wants to be able to simply end the Department of Education without going through Congress. He wants to be able to fire anyone he wants at any time for any reason. He wants to be able to exercise vast amounts of authority. Do I think the Constitution will prevent him from doing so and the courts will prevent him from doing so? Sure. But that doesn't mean we let down our guard. I would disagree, though, that it's time to panic. Panic serves no one. Panic does no good. Do not fear. Fear is a mind killer. Figure out a way to stop him and do so. Okay, that's it. I'll be quick. I'll see you guys later. No stream tomorrow. Next stream's on Monday when we talk about Doge. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.